Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Was Trained by Dark Hashirama. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Western border of the Land of Fire. Many people regarded 18 year old Sarutobi Konohamaru, the fourth Jinchuriki of the Ichibi no Tanuki and grandson of the Sandaime Hokage, as a genius. The young man was a genin at the age of 12, but by then he had mastered several high-level ninjutsu, and he was undoubtedly much stronger than other kids his own age. Having attained the rank of jonin at the age of 18, he was returned to his original position on Team Kakashi. 9 years prior, Uzumaki Naruto, his first sensei and brother figure, was killed in combat, taking the fabled Kyuubi no Yoko with him. He had initially been terrified and furious, holding his current teammates accountable for his San's passing. However, after learning all the facts surrounding that day, he had moved on and forgiven them. He'd been training constantly to improve control over its power ever since the Ichibi attack 8 years ago, and its subsequent sealing within his body by his grandfather to protect Konoha. It was a slow process, though, because the strongest known Fuinjutsu, the Shikifu Jin, had been used to imprison the Sand Demon. The seal increased the Ichibi's chakra reserves at a startling rate by allowing a small amount of his chakra to seep into his chakra core, but that was all it accomplished. In actuality, Sabaku no Gaara's seal was far more potent and constrictive to the demon inside than the one Gaara had previously, unlike the current Kazekage who was the Ichibi Jinchuriki before him. Gaara's seal was nearly non-existent, which gave the Ichibi, shukaku, the ability to torture his Jinchuriki in a way that was unsettling. This gave rise to terrifying dreams, murderous rumors, and even the idea of directly controlling Gaara's body whenever he dozed off. Positively, it also gave him control over sand to an extent that was only surpassed by Senju Tobirama's mastery over water. He also acquired an automatic defense in the form of a sand barrier under Shukaku's control, which would constantly rise whenever an attack was made against his Jinchuriki and by extension, him. Conversely, Shukaku was prevented from doing any of those things by Konohamaru's seal. While the young Sarutobi was relieved that he wouldn't have to stay awake all the time and deal with the sand demon's constant chatter in his head, he did find it frustrating that he wouldn't be able to control sand the way Gaara could. It would undoubtedly be helpful, especially in light of the fact that Gaara's skill made him the most powerful Kazekage of them all. The ninja detested the Ichibi within him, and the civilians despised him in Konoha, the village after which he was named. As a shinobi, he was respected by the villagers and recognized as the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage. However, his relationships with people outside of his team were tense. The only people who ever treated him like a regular person were his teammates Tenzo, the Godem Hokage, and Hanabi, the strange Hyuga girl who followed him around when he wasn't on a mission. Luckily, Jiraiya Sama had started training him and even let him sign the contract for summoning a toad. Because the toads possessed a strange jutsu that he had never heard of, which made them absurdly strong, he knew that they were among the 3 most powerful summons in existence. He was eager to find out that. Sakura inquired, "Is it just me or is it hot out here?" Konohamaru said, "Of course it's not you," without much hesitation. "We're almost to the desert, so of course it's going to get hotter." Regretfully, the pinkhead only heard the phrases, "get hotter," and "not you," so understandably, she interpreted it incorrectly. The teenage Sarutobi was suddenly struck across the jaw by a punch that sent him flying into a nearby tree. She was able to duplicate Senju Tsunade's renowned physical strength, even though her chakra control was flawless and her reserves had increased. That one blow would have killed Konohamaru in a different life, but since she had been moved from her previous position on Team Kurenai, it did not happen in this instance. At the age of 13, she was placed under Yuhi Kurenai's command and received instruction in various forms of genjutsu, as well as a brief introduction to medical ninjutsu. As a result, she attained the rank of Chunin at the age of 14 very quickly, and she has stayed there ever since, choosing not to sit for the Jonin exams until she was certain she was ready. She had gone a long way from being a worthless fangirl during her genin days. "Idiot," Sakura growled under her teeth. "It's almost as bad as Naruto, I swear." Pulling himself together, Konohamaru asked, "What did I say?" "HN," was Sasuke's answer. A funny voice said, "You're all a barrel of laughs," coming from behind them. "That's," Kakashi thought quickly as he turned. "Yes, that is Hoshigaki Kisame, the swordsman with the blue skin." "But that means..." A serene voice called out, "Hello Sasuke," grabbing their attention. Itachi, was the last thing Sasuke said before his elder brother emerged from behind a nearby tree. Ichibi, it wasn't easy finding you, Kisame remarked. But you see, my blade, Samahata, just loves powerful chakra. It was rather persistent in tracking down you. Very tasty scent. I'm afraid you're going to have to become food for Samahata now. Don't worry though, we won't kill you. Itachi calmly demanded, surrender the Ichibi. We only need the Jinchuriki alive. The rest of you can disappear. With his gaze fixed on his elder brother, Sasuke said, Kakashi, over his shoulder. I'll handle Itachi. Sasuke, said Kakashi. The only person who can defeat him is me, thought Sasuke. All right, Kakashi gave a nod. He gave the order, Sakura, Konohamaru, you two come with me, and leapt up into the trees, the other two close behind. Itachi gave the command, Kisame, go after them. Do not let the Ichibi escape. Grinning, Kisame replied, sure, and followed the Konoha. Nins who were running away. Now, Sasuke. Itachi stumbled as he met his brother's gaze. Your eyes have matured enough. I will enjoy taking them for myself and awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. If it's for my eyes, retorted Sasuke. Then come and claim them. They both whispered the word as their Sharingan transformed into their individual Mangekyo forms. Tsukuyomi. As they leapt from tree to tree, Kakashi said, Konohamaru, we'll attack him together. Sakura, hang back for now. We might need you in a minute. Yes, sensei, Sakura replied with a nod. Now. Kakashi exclaimed, landing on a tree branch and turning around right away. With a shuriken in his hand, he launched himself back at Kisame who was pursuing him. Konohamaru was also following. As he launched the little projectile, his hands quickly sealed, causing him to lean slightly to one side. The gray-haired former Anbu captain yelled, Raikiri, as he extended his fist toward the Kiri Nukanen, encased in lightning. Kisame said, not bad, while blocking Samahata. The lightning instantly went out, and it appeared as though the chakra behind it was drawn into the now giggling sword. He laughed, removing part of the skin from the copy. Nin's palm and pulling back the blade. But ninjutsu is useless against someone like me. He exclaimed. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Konohamaru exclaimed, forcing Kisame to retreat as the shuriken he had thrown at him abruptly expanded to 20. The teenage Sarutobi exclaimed, you're not getting away. While he inhaled deeply and formed another set of hand seals. Kaden. Heizekisho. He cried out, releasing a cloud of black powder from his mouth that swallowed the swordsman as he fled. A moment later, the powder erupted into a blazing blaze, concurrent with Konohamaru creating another hand seal. Kisame thought to himself, this kid is pretty good, as Samahata absorbed the flames. Yet insufficient, he chuckled, sensing his sentient sword begin to fuse with his back. Konohamaru muttered, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and a lone shadow clone materialized by his side. With a spinning chakra ball in hand, he charged at Kisame, yelling, Rasengan. As he closed in, thinking, I need to thank Kakashi Sensei for teaching me this jutsu, he was abruptly and violently blown back by a massive blast of water. Konohamaru gasped in shock as the water swept over the scene, swallowing him and his companions. What the? At the sight, Kakashi trailed off in thought, a Suiden jutsu on this scale is Suiden. Dai Bakusu Shoha. Kisame exclaimed, watching the water transform into a gigantic dome. They were able to distinguish his new look even though their vision was blurry when he suddenly materialized in front of them, swimming through the water. Is that the same as Kisame? Surprised, Kakashi thought. The swordsman had seemingly changed into a blue shark the size of a human with fins and gills, and he was no longer brandishing his sword. Has he bonded directly with his sword, or has his chakra merged with its? He is a true monster. Sakura considered the scene. Kisame cried out through the water, die. As he quickly approached his target. I am at a loss for what to do, Kakashi thought somberly and made a hand seal. To Kisame's astonishment, his left eye, the Sharingan, shifted and transformed into its Mangekyo form. As time and space warped in the dome's center, he whispered, Kamui, into the water. What the? Kisame gasped in shock as the water pulled in, causing him to escape the dome. This gave Kakashi, Sakura, and Konohamaru enough time to get away as well. That was the extent of Itachi's dujutsu, the monstrous shark pondered while Samahata separated from his body and transformed back into a human. Sakura worriedly said, "Are you alright, Kakashi? Sensei?" Kakashi answered, "I'm fine, Sakura," despite the fact that he was now drenched in sweat. "I can't always use that jutsu," he quietly pondered. "I think the sword is the key to his strength. If I take it out, Konohamaru should be able to finish the job." "You little punks," Kisame smiled, pulling Samahata to his side and lunging ahead of them. "Kamui," Kakashi murmured, his attention fixed on the sword that might have sentence. He created an artificial vortex at the sword's handle, distorting both space and time. Kisame cried out in shock, "The fuck?" as he was made to let go of his precious sword. He was furious when, a moment later, the blade disappeared along with the space. Time rupture that had formed, leaving him without a weapon. "You son of bitch!" he cried, making a bunch of seals with his hands. "Kakashi! Sensei!" Sakura exclaimed anxiously as Kakashi collapsed onto the floor, face down. She ran to him and gave him a quick examination. She thought, he's really depleted his chakra, and then he threw his arm over her shoulder and hauled her up. Konohamaru yelled over his shoulder to his pink-haired teammate, "Get out of here. I'll hold him off." Sakura began, but once more, Konohamaru exclaimed, "Go." "Oh no," Sakura exclaimed as she spun around and leapt back into the forest, carrying an unconscious Kakashi on her shoulder. Kisame roared, "Suiten, Daikoden no Jutsu," as a massive water shark appeared behind him and dove upon the teenage Sarutobi. With a resounding splash, the water shark hit Konohamaru, who cursed silently. As the water level dropped, there was soon silence. Kisame was very happy to see the dead body of the Ichibi Jinchuriki floating face down in the water. "I'll enjoy watching as the demon is ripped from his body. This brat cost me Samahata, so this annoying little shit was weak after all." Konohamaru landed on a tree branch nearby and turned to face the battlefield. He thought as he descended to the ground below, "I hope my shadow clone fooled him. Even I nearly missed that final move of yours," a recognizable monotone voice said behind him. Konohamaru turned quickly and saw the notorious Uchiha Itachi standing nearby. "Shit," he cursed. "What are you doing here? What happened to Sasuke?" Itachi told him, "I am just a clone," and then he started to erupt into dozens of black crows. Konohamaru thought, "Genjutsu," and sealed his palm. Much to his surprise and growing concern, the crows persisted even after a chakra pulse broke the illusion. Itachi was a well-known genjutsu expert who was reputed to be the best in his field and to be able to create illusions with a single glance. "I did not approach you in order for us to engage in combat," Itachi clarified while his upper body reformed from multiple crows. He continued, "I came to give you something," just as one of his crows lunged directly into Konohamaru's mouth. Konohamaru, struggling to contain his gag reflex, rasped, "W. What did you just do to me?" Itachi answered, "Just something that might be needed in the near future," before exploding into crows once more and taking off. "We will not meet again." What the devil was going on there? As Konohamaru felt the genjutsu finally break, he thought to himself, "I need to catch up with the others. I'll worry about that later." Sakura. Was all Kakashi could say when he came to. "What happened?" As they came to a halt in a clearing, Sakura said, "You passed out after using some kind of jutsu," with relief in her voice. "You had me scared there for a moment. After this, I'll probably be bedridden for a while, but I'm fine," Kakashi thought to himself. "If using Kamui twice can drain me so much, it appears that I have been neglecting my chakra control," he added thoughtfully. "Where are Konohamaru and Sasuke?" He stayed behind. Sakura stumbled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Konohamaru replied, "Actually I'm right here, emerging from behind a tree." But with a big smile, he said, "Thanks for caring." Sakura stammered back, But that's not. I made a shadow clone and pumped it full of Shukaku's chakra. I pulled a switch and then escaped." "Judging by the fact that they haven't dispelled it yet, I'd say they bought it," Konohamaru said. "It would be best if I kept Itachi a secret for the time being." Kakashi asked, "And Sasuke?" "I haven't seen him," Konohamaru said somberly in response. Kakashi said, "I see," nodding before getting back up on his own 2 feet. I'll go back and look for him. I want you two to head for Suna right now and don't stop running until you get there. There's always a chance that Kisame will discover your clone as a fake and then come after you again. The same trick won't work twice either, so our best bet right now is to get you as far away from him as possible. Sakura said, we can't just leave you and Sasuke-kun. I'm giving you two a direct order, Kakashi said to them. Get going, now. After a pause, Konohamaru uttered the words, those who disobey orders are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. How can you expect us to follow that order knowing that we'd be leaving you to die out here? Show a little faith, Kakashi answered. I've lost one student already because of my negligence and I won't lose another. You two head for Suna. Sasuke and I will catch up later. With a nod, Konohamaru said, I'll hold you to that, Kakashi. Sensei, before turning away. Come on, Sakura, he urged the pinkette. Sakura began, But Sasuke-kun is still. He'll be alright, Konohamaru gave her his word. If there's one thing I've learned since I joined this team, it's that the Uchiha Teme just refuses to die. Although he had previously been placed under the Genjutsu, or Tsukuyomi, this time it was much more dangerous. This time, he wasn't some young child who had just awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Instead, he was able to put Itachi on an equal footing by using the same Genjutsu on him as soon as he was attacked. But more significantly, this made their minds connect, linking their Genjutsu to create this artificial world they had entered. It appeared to be a terrible world because the sky was blood red and everything around them was completely dark. Unlike his previous encounter with this jutsu, this time seemed to be a reflection of both of their minds rather than just Itachi's creation. The sky was gushing blood. When he saw Itachi standing nearby, he ignored the bloody rain that began to pour down on him. The elder Uchiha, seemingly indifferent to the situation they had found themselves in, turned to face his younger brother. Now both of their Mangekyo Sharingan were weeping blood, a sign of their anguish. Finally, Sasuke said, enough, as their surroundings began to break apart. When they said, I've had enough of your illusions, the environment around them collapsed and they found themselves back in the original forest. Let's settle this once and for all. Itachi gave a monotone response, very well, and quickly formed a hand seal. A moment later, he let out a rather large fireball towards the younger Uchiha, saying, Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Using the same jutsu, Sasuke countered, Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. The two fireballs collided in a blaze, each attempting to overwhelm the other until it was evident that they were at a loss for energy. They both whispered, Amaterasu, as black flames fueled the fire. Itachi agreed, remarking, You've come a long way, Sasuke, as the two were compelled to part ways lest they run the risk of being doomed by the unquenchable flames. Sasuke saw the chaos the two Uchiha brothers had caused in their personal conflict and thought, this should be enough. Kaden. Goryuka no Jutsu. He yelled, unleashing two orange fire dragons out of his mouth toward the lowering dusk. What is he doing? Itachi pondered his brother's actions and asked. I don't know what he wants to accomplish, but he just used up a lot of chakra to do that. This is the end, Sasuke said, watching as clouds grew darker above them and lightning pierced the earth. He exclaimed, be gone with the sound of a thunderclap. Kirin. As lightning struck in the form of a beast that resembled a dragon and fell upon Itachi. As the attack struck, Itachi realized, that's natural lightning. As it hit, he whispered, Susanoo, setting off a tremendous blast that turned everything in its path into dust and reduced a half-mile in size. Sasuke trailed off as the attack subsided and the clouds began to part. That's... Itachi seemed to be sweating from exhaustion, but he was still standing unharmed despite blood now streaming from his mouth. But the younger brother was drawn to the enormous red ethereal god, shaped like a yumabushi, that had enveloped his form and was holding a jar, a sword, and a shield in its three hands. So you really do have that jutsu after all. This is the third jutsu granted by Mangekyo Sharingan requiring the usage of both eyes, Itachi said. You should feel honored to see it in its full glory, little brother. Well, if that's how you want to play, then fine, Sasuke shot back with a scowl as purple chakra burst from his body, forming a massive, armored humanoid figure with three hands that resembled the one Itachi had formed but held a bow, an arrow, and an orb in place of the hands. Sasuke called out, Susanoo, as he put an arrow into the bow. Itachi remarked, that's incredible. You also became able to use this jutsu. My hatred has strengthened me, a scowling Sasuke said. He yelled, "Die Itachi!" as he shot the loaded arrow. With a resounding bang, Itachi raised his shield to block the arrow, then swung a broad arc to take aim at Sasuke from the side. Just as he was about to fire another arrow, aimed at Itachi's guardian deity's head, Sasuke leapt back to avoid the sword. It hit true and ripped straight through it, shattering its head like glass before it instantly reformed. Itachi said, "That's not enough, little brother," even though it was obvious they were both exhausted. Both of them realized that the winner would be the one with more endurance, since this would now be an attrition-based fight. It was only a matter of time until one of them lost interest and the whole thing collapsed. Itachi swiftly redoubled his assault, piercing Sasuke's spirit warrior's chest and through its armor to the core. However, Itachi was armed with the fabled Totsuka no Tsurugi and Yata no Kagami, which are renowned for being the Uchiha clan's ultimate sealing blade and unbreakable shield. When his Susanoo got stuck in Itachi's sake jar and had to jump back, Sasuke was taken aback. As Itachi approached him slowly after his landing, he swiftly reformed his Susanoo. "Damn it," Sasuke uttered as he felt the Susanoo he had just created fade away. He realized as he struggled to stay upright, "I'm out of chakra." Breathing out, Itachi said, "This is the end." Sasuke, feeling his own Susanoo disappear. He raised his palm to Sasuke's face and limped over to his younger sibling. He trailed off, "My light. Give me my light," before eventually coming to stand in front of his brother. "Sorry, Sasuke. Maybe another time." Eventually, his body gave out and he collapsed to the side, his eyes lifeless as he stared up at the sky. Sasuke just stared in disbelief before collapsing to the ground from exhaustion as well. Moments afterward, an entity akin to a Venus flytrap materialized from the earth, and a man donning an orange spiral mask featuring a solitary eyehole materialized in close proximity. Looking down at the Uchiha brothers, Obito asked his partner, "Did you record everything?" White Zetsu answered, "Oh yeah, we got everything all right." "It was enjoyable," Zetsu, who is black, continued. Gazing down at the now deceased man, Obito thought, "Oh Itachi, you underestimate me." Realizing instantly what the lightning strike in the distance was, all he could do was fight back the growing sense of dread. Even Sasuke had to concede that the jutsu he had developed was pretty impressive, especially since he intended to use Itachi again. Sasuke wasn't holding anything back because he had used it, so it was likely that he would need backup as soon as possible. After all, this was Uchiha Itachi, who was regarded as one of Konoha's greatest shinobi even though he was known for being a psychopath who killed people in large numbers. As he leapt out of the trees and onto the battlefield, Kakashi begged himself to not be late. Nobody was present. Cinching his fists, Kakashi thought, "Damn it. I failed once more." Akatsuki base, the land of wind. As he deposited into the little base they had established in the northern region of the land of winds, Kisame moaned with annoyance. They had built this base with the intention of raiding Suna, but they had largely given up on using it until now after losing the Ichibi to Konoha. Swinging in with the unconscious Konohamaru, draped over his shoulder, he saw the 7 holographic representations of the other Akatsuki members. "You're running late," Pain said. "I have already been informed that Itachi has perished in battle with his younger brother, so this will take longer than normal." The Jinchuriki had a few fairly powerful allies, Kisame said, placing Konohamaru on the ground. "I even lost Samahata because of that bastard, Hitaki Kakashi." Before them, a huge demonic statue burst from the earth. "Let's begin," Pain said. "From this point on it will take 3 days and nights to complete. Everyone also be mindful of your real bodies." "Okay, now Zetsu. Use your real body as a lookout and use your longest range." As they all made a hand seal, Deidara wondered, "This'll be our 7th one, HN?" As 9 spiritual dragons emerged from the statue's mouth and devoured Konohamaru's body, Pain yelled, "Fuinjutsu! Genryu Kyufujin!" A steady stream of red chakra was torn from the teenage Sarutobi's body and drawn into the statue, lifting him into the air and leaving his mouth and eyes open in a silent scream. "This will take longer than usual without Itachi," Kakuzu remarked. Conan said, "There's a problem," right before Konohamaru vanished in a puff of smoke. She was surprised and asked, "A shadow clone?" Deidara remarked, sounding almost amused, "Hey, it looks like the Ichibi Jinchuriki pulled the wool over your eyes." Kisame growled in rage at the idea, "That accursed brat. He was blinded by the darkness, but the pain indicated that he was still alive. What had happened? Raising his palm to his face, Sasuke thought, the last thing I remember is Itachi. My eyes, he stammered, feeling bandages encircling his head and covering his eyes. Where am I? So you're awake, huh? A shadowy voice inquired. You were able to defeat Itachi, though that is hardly surprising considering he wanted to die at your hand. W. Who are you? Asked Sasuke. What are you talking about? I am Uchiha Madara, the voice introduced herself as. Also, I took the liberty of transplanting Itachi's eyes into you. A good thing too, because you were already blind when I brought you here. Madara? Sasuke inquired, perplexed. He's dead. You can't be him. Have faith in your desires, Madara said with a shrug as he emerged from the shadows. But you shouldn't dismiss something out of hand without knowing all the facts. Just like Itachi. Are you familiar with Itachi? Sasuke inquired more. Let me tell you the truth about Itachi and the Uchiha clan. After all, I was the one who helped in the massacre, said Obito. Sasuke growled angrily, you helped him? At that realization, I'll kill you. You shouldn't kill me, Obito argued. I helped him because the Uchiha betrayed me long ago, but for Itachi. He was under orders to wipe out the Uchiha clan. Sasuke insisted, orders? Orders from whom? Konoha, of course. Land of Fire, Hokage Tower and Konoha. As Kakashi described their most recent encounter with the Akatsuki, Jiraiya sat in his chair looking grimly. He winced when he learned that the last loyal Uchiha of Konoha had been declared Mia, or missing in action, and was thought to be dead. Since even Kakashi's summoned dogs were unable to detect their scents leaving the area, it was evident that the Uchiha brothers had engaged in combat and had most likely struck each other down. Sasuke's Kirin had also probably destroyed their bodies, making recovery impossible. Put another way, it was a complete mess. I see, Jiraiya eventually uttered. His words, I'm sorry for your loss, were aimed at the team's Pinkette, who was on the verge of tears and collapse. She had known the man for almost 13 years, 9 of which she had been assigned to his team, so it was understandable that she was feeling sentimental at the moment. She had recently lost the man she loved. Speaking, Kakashi said, I'll take care of the arrangements to have his name engraved on the memorial stone alongside Naruto's. After saying, Kakashi, Sakura. You two were dismissed, Jiraiya nodded before they walked away. Konohamaru inquired, Hokage. Sama? While he and the others had never really gotten along, he was still of the opinion that Sasuke didn't deserve to die and wasn't as saddened by the Uchiha's passing. Did you want something? In light of this latest development, I'm going to have you undergo personal training with the Toads, Jiraiya stated to him. I've seen the stuff that Sasuke could throw around, and if someone, even Itachi, could take him down, then it's clear that their leader must be a monster of a man even by my standards, so you'll need to be ready. Training? A bewildered Konohamaru asked. I've been training for 6 years, Hokage. Sama. I don't think any sort of last-minute training is going to help me deal with these kinds of assholes. It will, Jiraiya knew to answer. Pack your things because you leave in an hour. Akatsuki base, the land of wind. It simply isn't possible for it to be true. Itachi couldn't have voluntarily betrayed the Uchiha clan, his own family, to Konoha after everything that had transpired. However, he realized it was real when he thought back to Itachi's tears from that very night so long ago, and he cried out in agony for his brother's passing and his family's suffering. Konoha had been attacked by the Kyuubi, and the Uchiha clan was shunned for perhaps possessing control over the raging demon. They even went so far as to turn Itachi into a double agent as part of their plot to overthrow the Hokage and the village elders, who had been closely monitoring them ever since. Itachi had been given the order by the elders and the Sandaime Hokage to exterminate the entire clan when a civil war was about to break out, potentially sparking the Fourth Great Shinobi War. In an effort to salvage the honor of the Uchiha clan, Itachi had made a deal for his younger brother's life and had established a reputation as a notorious criminal who would eventually be taken out by Sasuke. While this was going on, Itachi was allowed to shoulder the responsibility for protecting the innocent village by the Sandaime Hokage and the elders. It was repulsive. Gazing down at the younger Uchiha, Obito asked, "What will you do now?" "I will destroy Konoha for what they have done to my clan and my brother," said Sasuke. Obito retorted, "You can't do that in your current condition. It will take you time to get adjusting to your new eyes, and I know just how you can master them." "How?" Sasuke inquired. Kisame, Obito uttered, causing the blue-skinned swordsman to emerge from the darkness. Aim to keep this from getting lost again, he said, giving Samahata to the Kiri Nukanen. Naturally, Kisame smiled back at Mizukage Sama and hefted the blade. Now Sasuke, I want you and Kisame to go to the land of lightning. You should be able to locate and capture the Hachibi Jinchuriki. By the time you're done you should have full control of your new eyes, Obito said. That's okay, Sasuke nodded. Aim, Akatsuki headquarters, the land of rain. Standing in the middle of the dimly lit room, Pain's Diva Path looked out over the Gedo Mazo, which contained 6 of the Biju. Madara had stated that Kisame and Uchiha Sasuke, his recent apprentice, would seize the Hachibi from Kumo, leaving him with just one more target to seize. The elder Uchiha believed that Pain would like a chance to defeat Konoha while he was hunting the Ichibi because the Ichibi belonged to Konoha. Nonetheless, he was aware that Konoha was a formidable shinobi village that shouldn't be taken lightly. Since their establishment, they had maintained their position as the strongest. It also had a tendency to produce monster-like shinobi, like Namikaze Minato and Jiraiya Sensei, the latter of whom even Pain acknowledged was quite skilled. That much was evident from the fact that the Ichibi Jinchuriki had tricked Kisame into capturing a shadow clone rather than the real one. Pain, Konan said as she walked into the space. Pain asked, are they assembled? Deidara and Sasori just arrived. They're the last other than Kisame, Sasuke and Madara. They're ready to leave when you give the okay, replied Konan. It's going to be difficult to attack Konoha, Pain thought. Only the full might of the Akatsuki and God will be enough to bring down a village run by Jiraiya Sensei. Nagato. Was all Konan said. Pain said, peace is almost here. It is time. Konan said, I will wait with the others, as he turned to walk away. Wait, Pain abruptly interrupted. Nagato? Konan inquired, turning back to face him. My reign has been disturbed, Pain said, her eyes narrowed. And judging by their chakra, it's someone dangerous. Takamaru, thanks for the lift, Naruto said as he and Karen descended into the deserted alleyway. Sure, it was pouring hard, but what more could one ask for from a village buried beneath the rain? Never ask me to fly in this country again, Takamaru shot back. He continued, and make sure to get more snacks, before vanishing in a puff of smoke. Naruto mumbled, grouchy much? Karen raised her voice, we should hurry. With Naruto's arms around her, she leapt high into the air and said, we've probably already been detected, while looking out over the hidden village from the rain. Tendo. Shinra Tensai. She cried out as a compressed gravity sphere encircled her and then grew larger, forming a huge wave that crushed everything it came into contact with. A single attack reduced a borderline great shinobi village to a crater. There just weren't enough words to express it. Karen, was the last word Naruto said. Are you alright? It appears that I may have utilized my diva path excessively, Karen remarked upon landing beside Blonde in the center of the crater. The redhead whispered, Shikushodo, Kachiyose no Jutsu, and slapped her hand on the floor. Konan cried out, Nagato. As she took in the destruction all around her. In an instant, she had been conversing with Yahiko's corpse, Pain's diva path, and the next, the entire village had been destroyed. She was unaware of the events that followed, but she had managed to quickly orient herself in the now. Devastating Amegakure no Sato. She knew he couldn't be dead, not after everything they had been through, even though Pain's tower had been destroyed. I'm here, Konan, the real Pain, Nagato, said as he touched down beside her. His legs had been severely burned early in his life, forcing him to rely on a mechanical chair to get around in his 6 paths to fight his battles for him since his body had become crippled after he had first used the power of the Gedo Mazo. As a result, he was riding on the back of his summoned bird. Kachiyose no Jutsu, Shikushodo, he muttered, forming a hand seal. He looked in the direction of the intruders, and clouds of smoke materialized at his side, revealing all 6 paths of pain. Konan questioned, her gaze fixed on the scene in front of them, who could have done this? Whoever they are, they will pay, said Nagato, launching his 6 paths in the direction of the intruders. That was a full powered gravity blast like those used by my diva path. Konan said, I'm going too, and then her body broke into dozens of paper butterflies and she took off. Deidara and the other Akatsuki members were standing at the edge of the freshly formed crater when he exclaimed, "What the fuck was that, With shock. That was not art. Kakuzu pondered, "I don't know what kind of jutsu that was." He pointed to the crater's center and said, "But I think the ones who did it are down there." Sasori told them, "There is leader." Sama, after witnessing 7 figures, Diva and Konan among them, jumped down into the crater. "It ought to be enjoyable," Hidan smiled. "Jashin. Sama will be praised. They're coming," Hinata announced while using her Byakugan. After destroying AIM, Karen used her animal path to call her Haku, Tsunade, and Hinoka so they wouldn't be caught in the first assault on the reigning village. "This is their home," quips Naruto. "I guess they're pissed that we brought the party to their doorstep, huh?" Menma. Sama, Hinoka warned him not to underestimate the Akatsuki. They have already succeeded in capturing 6 of the Biju, something no one has done since the founding era. "Haku," Karen interrupted, her eyes narrowed. "You're up." Haku cried out, "Hayatan, Yukihana no Jutsu." As an ice flower appeared in front of them from the collected rainwater and shot upward to block the Akatsuki members' onslaught. "Hayatan?" Diva asked, taking in the scene. As gravity compressed in front of him, breaking the ice flower, he exclaimed, "Shinra Tensai." "I see. A member of the cursed Yuki clan of Kirigakure no Sato." That was, Karen thought to herself as she saw the special jutsu when Konan and the 6 paths of pain landed in front of them. Staring at the Akatsuki leader, Naruto trailed off, "Hey, aren't those eyes?" The Rinnegan, with a nod from Karen. "You too possess these divine eyes," Pain pondered, focusing on the youngest Uzumaki lady in attendance. "I should have expected as much when I saw you destroy my village with a gravity wave." Tsunade commented, that face, her eyes fixed on the diva path of pain. "You used to be one of Jiraiya's old students. I remember you." Tsunade, one of the Sannin that were defeated by Hanzo back during the Second Shinobi War, Pain said with knowledge. "You're supposed to be an old drunk wallowing in the misery of losing her loved ones. Do you understand, Pain?" Tsunade scoffed, "Pain, huh? Jiraiya mentioned that one of you 3 brats had the Rinnegan, but I thought he was joking at the time." Raiden. Gion. A lightning strike erupted from the heavens, and Kakuzu, his 4 webbed bodies by his sides, hit the earth. Mokuton. Mokujoheki, Naruto said clearly as half a dome formed between the Yuki and Akatsuki ninja and wood shot out of the ground all around them. The masked blonde remarked, "Lightning isn't a good element to use against wood," as Kakuzu's lightning strike hit the wooden dome ineffectively. It was the Mokuton of the Shodai Hokage, Pain thought upon seeing it. Perhaps another Senju clan member? With great pleasure, Hidan lowered himself behind the Yuki ninja and exclaimed, "You will all be sacrificed for the glory of Jashin." Sama. Tsunade gave him a punch to the face, effectively removing his head from his shoulders, as a reward for his enthusiasm. "Hey you bitch. That hurt, damn it." Hidan's detached head continued to swear at Tsunade, who blinked in shock. "What the heck?" The renowned medic. Nin stared at the sight, thinking only that. Over the years, she had witnessed some insane behavior, but she had come to terms with the fact that, in life, if your head was not attached to your body, you were dead. After having her head removed, not even she would be able to survive, but this immortal seemed to be ranting even more. She noticed a sudden flicker of white as a white clay creature that resembled a bird flew past her face. From his perch atop a massive clay dragon, Deidara cried out, "Katsu!" As the clay bird burst in the medic. In's face. He laughed, "Art is a blast." As Tsunade emerged from the smoke, her wounds healing quickly. Sasori asked, "Your orders, leader." "Sama?" "Kill them all," Pain said in a composed tone. Sasori nodded, "I will add their bodies to my collection," and he removed his Akatsuki cloak to reveal the puppet of a scorpion, named Hiriko, inside. "Karen, pull back and deal with the one flying above us." "Haku, Hinoka, I leave that scorpion thing to you," Naruto said. "Hinata, the paper angel is yours. What about the guys with the Rinnegan?" "Even you can't take on 6 of them at once," Karen replied. "Shouldn't I be the one to face them?" "Well, I can," said Naruto in response. "And I'm the best choice because I've fought you more than anyone else for almost 9 years now." This was not a hollow boast or even a display of conceit, unlike his days as an innocent genin, like that of his former Uchiha teammate. He said this with complete confidence, indicating that he genuinely believed he was capable of handling anything the world could throw at him at this point. He considered 6-on-1 to be a fair fight because he wouldn't consider anything less to be a challenge. If the enemy really did possess the Rinnegan. The masked blonde asked Pain, "So you wish to challenge me? I will show you true pain. Let's go wild." The land of rain. Aim, surroundings. Born into the family of weak heirs to the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hinata had always been a shy child. Her family had always thought she was useless and intended to replace her with Hanabi, her younger sister. Neji, her cousin, accused her of being responsible for Kumo's attempt to abduct her in order to obtain the Byakugan, which led to his father's demise on her 3rd birthday 18 years prior. She had never once regretted leaving Konoha to travel with her Naruto Kun because, in all honesty, she thought they were changing the world. If she could avoid it, she vowed never to allow anyone to experience the same kind of family betrayal that she had from her own. After the main house of the Hyuga clan enslaved their cousins from the branch house, the clan split up, and she vowed to ensure that slavery would never exist again. Conan sneered down at the Hyuga kunoichi below, "You dare to attack our village," as she hovered in midair, paper wings sprouting from her back. "You bring war upon us, and what is it for?" With a, "You are collecting the Biju," Hinata answered. "That in and of itself is a war crime that has the potential to wipe out this planet. Our goal is to put an end to your actions and release the Biju from slavery." "You're a fool," Conan exclaimed, bursting into tears of joy. "Shikigami no Mai. She has transformed into a piece of paper," Hinata thought, her white eyes narrowing. "What an odd kind of jutsu." Clear as he spoke, Conan said, "Be gone from here," as the papers that surrounded the Hyuga kunoichi began to burn. "Those tags are explosive." The papers burst, causing Hinata's eyes to widen with surprise. As the flames subsided, Conan thought, that was far too easy. Yuho Soshiken. With 2 chakra lion heads wrapped around her fists, Hinata looked like a paper angel and suddenly materialized behind the paper angel. She ripped straight through Conan's body, tumbling back to the aqueous bottom below. It wasn't sufficient. It seems like she replaced her with a water clone, Conan realized. "Seems like we've come to a standstill," hinted Hinata. Conan shot back, not quite, raising her hand. Unexpectedly, the ground split open, forming a vast trench that spanned the battlefield, and Hinata plunged into it unprepared. "What is this?" With a questioning expression, Hinata fixed her gaze on the trench's walls. "There are explosive tags all over this place." Indeed, thousands of explosive tags covered the trench walls, and they suddenly peeled off and flew toward her. "Hakasho Kaden!" she exclaimed, deflecting the explosives with a chakra that began to spin around her. "Kami no Shisha no Jutsu." Conan let out a cry as the detonation bombardment started. "She is tagged with 600 billion explosives. Enough with the non-stop explosions for 10 minutes. Before I run out of tags, you'll run out of chakra." It appeared as though their conflict had devolved into an attrition war. "Now Haku. Chan." Hinoka screamed as Sasori, the enormous scorpion, pursued the two as they fired volley after volley of poisonous senbon. The man wearing a puppet he could control like his own body was the greatest puppeteer Suna had ever produced, and based on what she'd heard about him, she was beginning to believe the stories. Hayatan. Kokuryu Bofusetsu. As the puppet scorpion was being attacked by a massive black dragon made of ice that had formed from the falling rain, Haku let out a cry. Just before the black ice dragon crushed his puppet scorpion and forced him to flee quickly, Sasori thought, "That's impressive." He said, "I liked that puppet," when his youthful face was visible through the dust. "What the hell?" Hinoka gave a startled blink. She asked, knowing full well that the man was expected to be older than her. "Why do you look so young?" Sasori thought for a moment. "I suppose after seeing what you were able to do to aim, I shouldn't hold back," and then he took out a scroll and opened his strongest puppet. "That's..." When Hinoka saw the new puppet, she started to lose interest. "Hinoka. Dono?" Haku asked. "It's the Sandame case cage," Hinoka stated in conclusion. "Or at least a puppet modeled after him." Sasori said, "Actually, I turned his body into this puppet. He has become true art that will last forever." Hinoka glared, You slaughtered him, which began the Third Shinobi War, and you savaged his body. How come something is so wrong with you?" She was generally well. Mannered by Uzumaki standards, but the one thing that really annoyed her was when people showed no regard for the deceased. Sasori muttered, "Jishin. Satetsu Shigur," as metal fragments shot out of the cage's mouth and floated all around it. Abruptly, the metal shot forward, hurling a hail of iron sand directly at the two kunoichi. Hayaten. Makio Hyosho. Dozens of ice mirrors appeared in front of the two kunoichi as Haku spoke clearly. The two had to flee as the iron sand salvo tore into and shattered the ice mirrors upon impact. "I caution you, Haku. That material is toxic." Hinoka yelled at her partner. Sasori grinned, "You can't run from me," as more iron sand collected above the cage puppet to form two enormous objects that resembled spears and hammers. As the spear emerged and began to carve through the air like a knife through butter, forcing Haku to dodge, the command, "Jishin. Satetsu Keshu," resounded throughout the soggy battleground. He calmly stated, "You're both going to die here," as the hammer landed on Hinoka's location. Hinoka. Dono. When Haku saw her teammate getting crushed, she yelled. Sasori carelessly remarked, "Foolish girl." A moment later, he heard someone say, "You should have run," and the iron sand was being pushed aside by what appeared to be a shockwave. The air then became suddenly heavier. "What is that?" he asked himself as Hinoka stood there unharmed and surrounded by a blue aura that resembled samurai armor. "Rei no Yoroi," said the kunoichi from Uzumaki. H. Hinoka. Dono? Surprised, Haku asked. "What is this? What is that jutsu, and why is her chakra different? What is this?" Sasori asked. Hinoka clarified, "This is a kinjutsu I developed over the years. As long as it's active I cannot be harmed." She was not, of course, discussing the fact that it was categorized as a kinjutsu. This particular jutsu was extremely chakra intensive, quickly depleting the reserves of any regular shinobi or kunoichi in a matter of minutes, if not seconds. Fortunately, she had plenty of chakra to burn as a prime Uzumaki, even though her reserves were nowhere near as great as those of Senju Hashirama or Uzumaki Naruto. When it came to chakra levels, those two were unmatched. Jishin. Satetsu Kaiho. Swiftly, as he gathered iron sand above them, Sasori called out. The metal suddenly split apart and descended in a massive screen of impending death upon the two kunoichi. Hinoka gave the command to stand back, Haku, as the metal branches approached. In a sudden flash, Hinoka vanished and reappeared in front of the cage puppet as Haku withdrew to the protection of her mirrors. "No!" exclaimed Sasori. "Ken no Hikari." Just before she slammed her right fist into the Sandame cage's face, Hinoka let out a cry as it glowed white. A massive blast of chakra tore through the puppet like glass, and then it continued on, slicing up the landscape in a destructive storm. With growing rage, Sasori trailed off, "You." He sneered, "That was my favorite puppet," and took off his Akatsuki cloak. "I've had enough of this little game. I will kill you both for this." "You are free to give it a shot," Hinoka retorted. She stared at them on, they had been fighting, thinking, that body. He couldn't have. That's sick. He turned himself into a living puppet. "I don't know what you've done to yourself, but it's not going to be enough to defeat us." Akahiji. Hyaki no Soen. Seemingly deranged, Sasori laughed while he unlocked 100 puppets that instantly linked chakra thread to a hole in his chest. "I once destroyed a country with these." "What do we do, Hinoka?" "Dono?" Haku inquired of her partner. "I only require a single shot," Hinoka answered. "Stay back and let me handle this." Haku nodded and leapt back a good distance. "Okay," he said. "Kachiyose. Uzu no Tsurugi." Hinoka spoke as a flash of blue light materialized in her left hand, revealing a breathtakingly beautiful double-edged sword. 20 of the assembled puppets descended upon her as she raised it high. "Die!" Gleefully, Sasori shouted. Hinoka whispered, "Suitsukata," as she raised her sword and then lowered it in a broad arc. All 100 puppets just shattered, and their remnants clattered to the ground, splitting the ground open. Amazing, even though I knew Hinoka. Dono was strong, I've never really seen her fight. I was surprised by this, Haku thought to himself. Impossible, Sasori thought to himself as he witnessed the quick destruction of his highly valued puppet army. Who is this girl? Hinoka yelled, "This is your end," and lunged straight at Sasori. "Stay back." With a blast of flame from his flamethrowers on his wrists, Sasori yelled. That's not going to work. With her spirit armor deflecting the flames, Hinoka shouted back. It's over. Her statement came to pass when she sank her sword all the way into the puppeteer's chest, shattering his body like glass. Hinoka took a moment to make sure she had killed her target, then she let go of her spirit armor and gave up, exhausted. Are you alright? Haku questioned her. With a, I'll be fine, Hinoka answered. I just need to rest for a bit. Art is a blast. With a laugh, Deidara swung his flying clay dragon around and unleashed a hail of tiny clay spheres towards the Rinnegan carrier. As Karen adjusted the gravitational field around her to maintain her airborne position, she thought, that's Bakuten. She muttered, pitiful, as the bombs encircled her. Katsu! Cried the crazed bomber, watching as the flying Uzumaki kunoichi was surrounded by detonating clay bombs. Tendo. Shinra Tensai, Karen said in a clear voice as the explosions vanished from sight. At what she saw, Deidara cried out, what? How on earth did she do that? Those eyes. They're even more terrifying than Itachi's Sharingan. Is this the level of power that leader Sama can wield? Enough of this game, Karen said, her tone tinged with irritation. Tendo. Bansho Tenon, she said, raising an arm. What the heck? As Deidara was startled, he felt the force of gravity shift and be lifted from his clay dragon. Hell, what the devil is this? It was too late when he reached for more of his clay. It was just a question of time until Karen's outstretched hand grabbed him, taking him by surprise and leaving him with nowhere to run. Whispering, Ninjendo, Karen pulled her arm back, the insane bomber's soul still attached. Even as his now dead body descended to the wet ground below, she cast an indifferent glance down at his defeated corpse. To be fair, she had fairly high standards for deserving opponents, but the man was weak, just like many others she had encountered. Deidara was simply not up to par with the historical legends of Senju Hashirama, Uchiha Madara, and Namikaze Minato. She would even go so far as to say that Uzumaki Naruto, herself, assured company leader, was the only man she thought was worthy of her time these days. That man was a completely different animal. When she eventually ran out of explosive tags, the rain continued to fall evenly and the explosions stopped. After focusing all of her chakra on sustaining the nearly constant onslaught of devastating blasts for 10 full minutes, Conan collapsed to one knee. Even as the rain put out what remained of the flames, she sighed with relief that her opponent was nowhere to be seen. I've finished my Kami no Shisha no Jutsu. I was not thinking. Conan thought, I would need so much chakra. But it's finally over, as she struggled to gather her thoughts. She must be dead? With a hand pressed in a Juken strike against the older woman's back, Hinata asked from behind. How? You ought to be dead. Conan queried. I went over this plan. Did countless simulations. It should have worked. Nobody could have survived. Hinata gritted her teeth and said, you almost killed me, feeling the last of that chakra leave her body. Glancing over at Conan, she thought, Naruto. Kun, it's a good thing you sealed some of that chakra in me or I wouldn't have survived. You know, if things had been different, we could have worked together to bring about a peaceful world. Peace. So. You really are. The same. As. Me. As the last of her life left her, Conan whispered. Hinata gripped the shattered body of the older woman and thought, I hate this. I detest this world because it is full of death and violence. I apologize sincerely. Afterwards, she was unable to distinguish between her crying and the rain. Kakuzu remarked, you really are his granddaughter, as the renowned medic crushed her water mask to dust. But your jutsu are nowhere near his level despite being his descendant, nor do you have his bloodline. How do you know my grandfather? Tsunade asked. He had already defeated me a long time ago, Kakuzu said. He was the first Konoha shinobi I ever fought. That isn't feasible, Tsunade retorted. You'd have to be 100 years old. I've discovered methods to extend my lifespan, Kakuzu chuckled. Some would call me immortal, though we both know there is no such thing. I'll just have to finish what my grandfather started and kill you here if you really fought him. Tsunade said, I don't care if you're immortal or not, before charging towards them. Kaden. Zukaku. Kakuzu let out a cry as his wind and fire masks descended next to him and parted their lips. Futon. Atsugai. Flames and wind shot out of the masks, combining to swat across the sodden battlefield like a ferocious wave of death. Tsunade whispered, "Infuen Kai," as the seal on her forehead came off. A moment later, she added, "Sozo Saisei," running straight through the wave of flames. It burned, but she ignored it as she quickly bandaged her wounds and eventually made it through the whirlpool and out the other side. With growing concern, Kakuzu thought to himself, "She used her medical ninjutsu to heal any damage I just did," as Tsunade leapt over him. As he and his masked bodies attempted to disperse, he cursed, "Damn," but it was already too late. Satenkyaku. Aim, crater, the land of rain. Naruto thought to himself, "Now this is what I call a fight," as Asura's razor tail slashed at him, making him retreat. He said clearly, "Mokuton, Jukai Koden," and the entire battlefield changed as a forest of trees burst forth from the earth. Diva said, "Impressive," as he landed on one of the many branches. "So you are a Senju. Judging by the fact that you have the Rinnegan, you must be related to the Senju too," replied Naruto. Diva asked as the other 5 paths of pain began to encircle the lone masked blonde. "What are you talking about? The Rinnegan can only be awakened by combining the power of the Senju and the Uchiha into one vessel." "My comrade is the same," Naruto said. "Senju and Uchiha." Diva stammered and then squinted. "Not that it matters now. I will kill you for what you have done here today." "Try your hardest," Naruto pushed back. "Shinra Tensai." Diva cried out as a tremendous gravitational pulse struck, leveling a sizable portion of the recently formed forest. As he was propelled backwards by the gravity blast, Naruto thought, his gravity control is on par with Karen's, and he carelessly threw a 3-pronged kunai to the side. He continued, "I know Karen and I discussed her using her chakra rods to control slave bodies, but we discarded the idea." At that moment, Human materialized behind him, his arm extended. "Whoever this guy is, it appears like he followed through." "Ninjin," said Human. Naruto cut him off, saying, "Hiraishin no jutsu," as he flashed to where his 3-pronged kunai was embedded in a nearby tree's destroyed trunk. Diva trailed off at the sight. "That was. Who are you?" "I am Senju Hashirama," Naruto said. "Senju Hashirama?" Diva asked in a startled tone. "And here I thought only Uchiha Madara was still alive to remember the founding era." Naruto asked. "Uchiha Madara? Are you saying he's alive?" Diva pondered. "We are acquainted. How on earth is Madara still alive?" Naruto reasoned, "Unless he's somehow immortal, then I doubt it's really him. Hashirama Sensei killed him decades ago. Nevertheless, my parents informed me that they thought Madara was in charge of the Kyuubi on the night I was born, so perhaps." The Kyuubi no Yoko, also known as Kurama, growled in the back of his mind, "Do not be stupid, boy." Although they had developed a stronger bond and learned how to collaborate over the years, the fox still liked to be by himself. But the fox rarely talked about trivial matters. When he did, it was usually about something significant. "He may have been similar, but the one who ripped me out of your mother's seal didn't feel like that accursed Uchiha." "We'll deal with it later," replied Naruto, whirling his 3-pronged kunai in response to the sight of Asura's feet erupting in flames, propelling him towards the blonde with a mask. Asura said, "Shirado," as dozens of projectiles that resembled missiles shot out of his sides and descended upon Naruto's location. Naruto leapt back to avoid the volley, thinking, "Shit." The missiles pounded the battlefield, tearing apart the trees and setting it ablaze, though the rain soon put out the flames. "It appears that I will need to escalate this further." "Kachiyose no jutsu," Animal said reassuringly, putting his hand on the wet rock beneath him. A massive 3-story rhino emerged from an explosion of smoke, surrounded by seals. It turned and ran straight at the blonde with the mask on, raising dust clouds in its wake. Kurama muttered to himself in the back of his mind, "I get sick of watching this. Stop holding back against this faker." "All right, then," Naruto replied, closing his eyes. Diva said, "Your jutsu cannot save you from a god's wrath," as the rhino struck Naruto with such force that it blasted dust into the air and then slowed down as if it had struck a wall. "What is this?" he pondered. "Senjutsu. Senin Moto," Naruto said clearly, his hands firmly gripping the rhino's horn to keep it from moving. His eyes went from blue to yellow, and a dark circle formed on his forehead. Dark rings also formed around his eyes and extended across the rest of his face. He inhaled deeply, feeling the natural energy of his surroundings course through his body, and then he moved, tossing the enormous rhino into the air with his bare hands with almost effortless ease. This jutsu, what is it? The 6 Paths of Pain thought. Where did this masked stranger get such superhuman physical strength? His Rinnegan could see nothing unusual other than the physical transformation, which was visible to ordinary human eyes. Then there was his presence. In spite of the fact that he was facing a god manifest in mortal form, the man in front of him appeared to be perfectly at ease with nature itself. As Asura and human charged towards the masked blonde, Diva thought, I can't let him finish whatever it is he plans to do. Mokuton. Kajukai Korin. Cried Naruto as the earth split open and a huge wooden flower shot up out of it. This jutsu. Diva trailed off in contemplation as the wooden plant released an odd gas that made people sleepy. He exclaimed, Shinra Tensai. As he unleashed a tremendous gravitational blast that destroyed the wooden plant in the small artificial forest in addition to blowing the gas away. He turned to see Naruto with 2 shadow clones by his side and a whirling chakra shuriken in his hand as a sudden bell. Like screech filled the air. That previous jutsu was merely a diversion. The masked blonde yelled, Futon, Rasen Shuriken. As he hurled the chakra shuriken at the Asura and human who were still gathered together. Pain tried to force both of his paths to dodge, thinking, damn it. But it was too late. The chakra shuriken passed between them, enlarging into a whirling ball of wind. The wind ball burst with a loud boom, tearing Asura and human apart before disappearing. It was necessary that the body at least be somewhat solid rather than atomized because, even my Naraku path can't repair that kind of damage. At the Diva path, a second chakra shuriken burst from Naruto's hand, yelling, Futon, Rasen Shuriken. Diva thought, not again, as Preta materialized in front of him. Preta muttered, Fujutsu Kyuin, as a barrier materialized in front of him and swiftly absorbed the chakra shuriken. Kurama questioned his host, did you notice? Yes, Naruto thought to himself. These bodies are only utilizing 1 path apiece. Be careful not to undervalue him, Kurama cautioned. He may be a faker like that cousin of yours, but his eyes are still strong enough to challenge you. The Rinnegan is truly unique, don't you think? Thoughtfully, Naruto rapidly formed a pair of hand seals. He yelled, Mokuton, Mokuryu no Jutsu. As a massive wooden dragon leapt out of the earth, circled him, and then launched itself toward the Preta path. Diva remarked, impressive, as the wooden dragon approached. But not good enough. Preta said clearly, Fujutsu Kyuin, as the wooden dragon fell upon him. He saw that it had a single, 3-pronged kunai embedded in its mouth, which caused it to stop abruptly and gradually begin to dissolve. With a swift motion of Hiraishin no Jutsu, Naruto materialized in front of him, striking Preta in the head with a punch. These guys must be considered metalheads, I suppose. It's not appropriate to make jokes now, Kurama scowled angrily. Really, just like Senju Hashirama, his Jinchuriki never seemed to take things seriously. Keep your head in the game, brat. Behind the lone path appeared a large demonic head that Naraku recognized as Karen's outer path. Jigokudo, he spoke clearly. What is he calling that thing forth for? Naruto pondered and asked. Watch out, Kurama cautioned. Naruto muttered, you've got to be kidding me, as he observed Preta's remains being consumed by the outer path and then emerging fully healed. What the fuck was that? Don't ask me, Kurama said in reply. I only ever saw old man Rakudo create the moon with his gravity jutsu, nothing else. Excellent, said Naruto loudly. Since those slave bodies are already dead, this isn't like Karen's resurrection jutsu, which uses the outer path. Instead, it's something else. Diva asked, do you realize how futile it is to challenge a god now? Again with that god. Talk of yours, Naruto mockingly remarked. Hiraishin no Jutsu, he said, emerging in a flash of yellow at Preta's side, and he proceeded to ram his senjutsu. Enhanced fists through Preta and Naraku's heads. Kicking the now headless Preta to the side, he continued, for the record, I'd already tagged this bastard when I killed him the first time. Pain observed the masked blonde and thought, the Yondaime Hokage's Hiraishin no Jutsu is truly a dangerous jutsu. It's probably on par with Madara's space time ninjutsu in a race against time. Animal slammed his hand down on the ground and cried out, Kachiyose no Jutsu. The surface was covered in seals, and a huge dog materialized out of a cloud of smoke. You know, Naruto murmured into the rain. You really should learn to look up, someone said. A moment later, the animal path was next to a single, three-pronged kunai that dropped like rain, concealing its presence. Hiraishin no jutsu, he said, rising above animal and is called upon dog while holding a massive chakra sphere. Senpo. Sho Odama Rasengan. Ugly, useless. Pain thought to himself as the enormous spiraling ball crushed his animal path and the enormous dog vanished in a cloud of smoke. He even destroyed my Naraku path to push me this far, making it impossible for me to revive the others. At this rate, I'll have to use that jutsu to end this. Naruto asked the Diva path, what's the matter? Running out of ideas? Diva. Pain said clearly, Bansho Tenin, as Naruto was drawn toward him in gravity change. The falling, masked blonde was hit by a large chunk of earth that resembled a boulder, which caused him to throw his three-pronged kunai to the side. Flashing to the spot where the kunai landed, Naruto exclaimed, Hiraishin no jutsu. I am at a loss for options, Pain cautiously considered. I have to use that jutsu if I want to win this. If I just keep attacking him in this manner, he will just keep using it as an escape route. Everything that possesses one of his seals should be drawn into the jutsu by it, preventing him from leaving the battlefield and giving me time to reorganize and find my paths. Naruto asked the now silent Diva path, what's the matter? Have I finally managed to shut you up? Pain said clearly. Chibaku Tensai, as his hands formed a triangle seal and a tiny black dot of chakra materialized in the middle. He launched it into the air, and as gravity started to change, a dazzling light descended. What on earth is this? As he felt the earth begin to rumble and groan, Naruto pondered. This is the jutsu that old man Rakudo used to create the moon, Kurama responded. As the earth began to split apart and rise toward the dark chakra. Gravity sphere, Naruto thought, shit. How in the hell can I help? He's bringing in every one of my Hiraishin kunai, so by the time I return, he'll most likely be fully recovered if I jump to the one I put at the border. After Karen turned this village into a crater, Sage is aware that there are plenty of dead people here that he can use for his little puppet jutsu. Kurama grated angrily. TCH, to think that even now you have to rely on me to get you through your battles. Even though he and Naruto had grown closer over time than with his previous two hosts, he still detested it when someone used his power. Though it would take too long and he was getting sick of watching this farce, his current host was still strong enough to defeat this faker without him. Synchronize your chakra with mine and let's finish this. Naruto grinned broadly and exclaimed, thanks Kurama, as he was drawn up into the small moon that Pain had just formed. Stillness. Pain turned away, thinking to himself, finally. A sudden snapping noise stopped him in his tracks and made him turn back to the new moon he had just created. Now I need to deal with the others and then I can start recovering my paths in preparation for the next assault, he thought to himself. Impossible. There's no way. A moment later, the underside of the small moon burst into a golden chakra fox covered in a very intricate seal matrix that spread across its spine and tails. That is not feasible. That is the... With his tails digging back inside the moon, Kurama said aloud through his chakra mouth, let me deal with the gravity well. He then swiftly wrapped around the moon's core and crushed it. As the chakra fox descended toward the earth and the gravity sphere was destroyed, he yelled, hang on. Naruto yelled from inside the chakra fox's head, be careful, Kurama. His mask was removed, exposing his face, which had changed as well. A golden chakra hand that resembled a flame encased his body, transforming him into the Rakudo Sennin, complete with a black undercoat and a large seal matrix beneath it. As the chakra fox struck him with a loud noise, Pain thought, to think he'd be able to destroy Chibaku Tensai. So. You're the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. I thought you were dead and was waiting for the Kyuubi to reform, but since you're here I will capture you now. Kurama, said Naruto softly as he lifted his hands and began assembling red and blue chakra spheres at the chakra fox's mouth into a single black ball. With his mouth clenching around the black chakra sphere, Kurama snarled, pitiful faker, down at Pain. You are not him and never will be. As a burst of golden light swept across the battlefield, Kurama released the black chakra sphere, and Naruto cried out, Bijudama. Pain exclaimed, Shinra Tensai. As he shielded himself by raising a gravitational barrier. As the explosion subsided in a three-pronged kunai fell at his feet, he thought, to think that the Kyuubi has been hidden from us for all these years. Hiraishin no Jutsu, Naruto said, emerging in front of him still covered in his released chakra form and holding a recognizable chakra sphere. Rasengan. The blow arrived before Pain could respond, particularly considering the 5-second cool down period of his jutsu. No. Pain exclaimed in agony as his last path was destroyed. Kurama, having pulled his chakra body back into the seal, asked his host, Naruto? These were merely the bodies of slaves, thought Naruto in response. Where is the real one, if that is the case? Blood was streaming from Uzumaki Nagato's mouth as he sat in his mechanized chair far from the battlefield and looked out at the area where his paths had been overcome. Despite not expecting his opponent to summon the power of the Kyuubi of all things, he had forced himself to use Chibaku Tensai after pushing himself past his breaking point. It was evident to him that Konan had lost, and since his 6 paths had been destroyed, it was only a matter of time until he followed her and Yahiko. Maybe things wouldn't have worked out this way if he had done things differently. This is unexpected, a voice from behind him said, causing him to feel a kunai stab him in the back. And I can't say I like how things have turned out. Nagato growled, Madara. Why? You. After saying, I am the one who gave you those godly eyes of yours and now I want them back. You were merely my pawn and now your usefulness has come to an end. Goodbye Nagato. Madara used his jutsu to draw Nagato's corpse into his own dimension. Jikukan Ito, the vortex subsided a moment later, leaving Madara standing by herself. He was, at least, until a specific figure appeared in front of him. Naruto pondered, so you've already gotten to him, huh? Upon seeing the member of Akatsuki wearing an orange mask. This guy. He's definitely the one who controlled me all those years ago. He's not Madara. And yet. I've felt his disgusting presence before. He's one of your father's old students. The kid was supposed to have died during the last war. Uchiha Obito, Kurama realized. I take it you're Uzumaki Naruto? Asked Obito. Madara. I've been looking for the Kyuubi for quite some time now. Please address me as Menma, answered Naruto. You're Uchiha Obito, one of my dad's old students? Interesting, Obito muttered in response to what he said. Call me Tobi. Naruto said clearly, my parents are dead because of you. And it's because of your father and your former sensei that the woman I love is dead. I guess we can call it even, replied Obito. You know sooner or later one of us will have to kill the other, said Naruto. Definitely, Obito replied. You have one of my precious Biju after all. Naruto retorted, I won't let you have the Biju. I'm excited to see you on the battlefield, Obito said, laughing as a vortex engulfed his right eye and drew him in. Jikukan Ito, he said, and vanished in an instant. Kurama questioned his Jinchuriki, was it wise to let him go? We're not prepared to take on him at this time, Naruto retorted. I've left Hiraishi and Kanai, our forces are dispersed, and the other villages will soon discover what has transpired here. We'll get him next time. If I were to face him now, it might take days for either of us to grow weary. Heaven on earth. Akatsuki hideout. Sasuke asked, why did you call us here? According to Kisame's account, several months prior, 2 immortals, named Kakuzu and Hidan had apprehended the Nibi Jinchuriki and utilized this base to retrieve her Biju. Things have shifted, Obito answered. I'm sending you after the Hachibi alone while Kisame hunts the Ikibi. Confused, Kisame asked, what happened? To their surprise, Obito replied, Amegakure no Sato has been destroyed and the rest of the Akatsuki are dead. Kisame asked, slightly surprised, what? Who did it? Based on their hite. 8, I would say Yukigakure no Sato, Obito said, although his statement was only partially accurate. Given Sasuke's presence and his tenuous hold on the younger Uchiha at the moment, he wasn't about to bring up Naruto in this conversation. In a different life, Naruto wouldn't have given his life to save Sasuke all those years ago. Instead, he would have served as a tool to strengthen and further corrupt Sasuke. I didn't know Yuki had any shinobi capable to taking on S. Rank Nukanen, Kisame thought. They've been isolated much like AIM used to be, so it's not really a surprise that they have a few capable shinobi amongst their ranks like Hanzo and Pain, said Obito. Based on his performance in the battle with the 6 paths of Pain, he would have to take on Naruto directly in order to capture the Kyuubi. I will personally deal with them later. As for now, we should continue gathering the remaining Biju, he said. Samahata laughed on Kisame's back, the Ichibi. Gaki huh? I wouldn't mind having another crack at him. Kisame smiled. Sasuke turned away and grunted, fine then. I'll deal with the Hachibi alone. I'll see you both when you get back, laughed Obito, observing the pair vanish. Zetsu, keep watch over Sasuke just in case he gets any ideas. Obviously, replied the white Zetsu. Black Zetsu said, leave it to us, as the human. Flytrap vanished beneath the earth. Over his shoulder, Obito inquired. Are you going to come out? A very different Yakushi Kabuto asked, Kukakuku, so you knew I was here? The man had changed into an inhuman. His face was covered in scales, and his eyes were yellow with black rings encircling them from behind his glasses and slits in them for pupils. His form was concealed by a brown cloak with a hood covering his face, although his strange smile revealed his unsettling background. Obito asked, why have you come here? I would like to accompany you, Kabuto said. Orochimaru. Sama was killed by the one called Menma and Otto was destroyed by his allies. I know what you were planning and I would love to see how this all plays out. With genuine curiosity, Obito asked. What could you possibly offer me? This man was obviously attempting to become a second Orochimaru, and he recalled that he had previously betrayed Akatsuki, so his successor would most likely carry on his master's legacy. Kachiyose. Edo Tensai, Kabuto muttered as he watched a wooden coffin beneath him burst open, its hood dropping to reveal a lone figure inside. At the sight, Obito trailed off, that's you. How did you find? With a menacing smile, Kabuto asked, will this suffice? Lightning Land, Storm Cloud Ravine. Throughout his life, Uchiha Sasuke had lost everything he had ever valued, and people had always chosen to take advantage of him. Konoha had destroyed his clan. His brother had set himself up as the victim. And the Sandaime Hokage had just stood by and watched it all take place. 9 years ago, on their first genuine mission, his best friend gave his life for Sasuke, enabling him to awaken the cursed power of his clan. However, his friend had lived a life full of hatred. Even though he had finally killed Itachi and discovered the truth about that evening, it didn't really matter. Konoha had abandoned those who remained to live as runaways after betraying its own founders. Although Sasuke had long since refused to serve as anyone's puppet, the reality was that he had always been someone's tool. The Sandaime Hokage was the first, followed by Itachi and now, Madara, even though Orochimaru had made an attempt when he was still a genin. He was strong enough to choose his own path, and it was obvious that he was going to destroy Konoha for their crimes once and for all, so he no longer cared who was using him. In all honesty, he had been considering this since learning the details of his best friend's post. Death treatment, but he had always pushed it to the back of his mind since Naruto would not have approved of it. Subsequently, he witnessed the treatment of Konohamaru following the sealing of the Ichibi within him by none other than his own grandfather, dooming him to the same fate as Naruto as the Yondaime Hokage 13 years earlier. Once more, he pushed the idea of overthrowing Konoha to the back of his mind, but learning that Konoha had ordered the extermination of his entire family proved to be too much for him. He would be able to destroy Konoha and ensure that the Uchiha clan would one day regain its former glory if he could control all 9 of the Biju. He would destroy any attempts at challenge or interference from the other villages, demonstrating to the world what happens to those who dare to use him and his clan for personal gain. As he made his way up the steps of the mountain ravine, Sasuke muttered, "So this is it." A voice asked, "Yo, who are you?" As he got closer to what appeared to be a small structure of some sort. "I'm riding here so Shu," a man with dark complexion and multiple tattoos said as he sat on a little stool by the side of the house, holding a notebook and a pencil. Sasuke asked, "Yatsuki Karabi? The Hachibi Jinchuriki?" Karabi answered, "That's me, Darapan Killer B." "Who's asking fool, ya fool?" Sasuke said, "You're coming with me," as his new Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan began to swirl. He whispered, "Tsukuyomi," causing the Hachibi Jinchuriki to freeze in place as his eyes met. The Uchiha thought, that was too easy, but Karabi quickly corrected him, throwing the pencil he was holding, infused with what appeared to be lightning chakra, and forcing Sasuke to quickly avoid it. "Genjutsu don't work on Jinchuriki who can control their Biju fool, ya fool," Karabi stated to him. Black flames shot out of Sasuke's eye, burning Karabi until he turned to ink. "Amaterasu," he said again. "A copy of ink? When did he change?" The Hachibi Jinchuriki reappeared from the side a moment later, closing in on the Uchiha before abruptly drawing 7 swords from his joints and pushing Sasuke farther back. This is how he uses 7 swords. That's not how you do kenjutsu normally, Sasuke thought, just as a ring of black flames appeared to surround him. Enten. Kokuin no Tate, he said in a clear voice as Kurabi withdrew. That's not too bad, Kurabi said. He concluded, but it's still so sad, before hurling 2 of his swords directly at Sasuke. Susanoo. Sasuke yelled as a massive, ethereal demonic humanoid with a revolving black orb in its third hand materialized all around him, surrounded by a flurry of purple chakra. The Hachibi. Yuki murmured to his host, this kid is Uchiha, in the back of his mind. Don't underestimate him. I understand, don't worry at all, Kurabi said, condensing and bursting with red chakra. From the demonic shroud, 8 crimson tails formed a black sphere that exploded to reveal his transformation. The dust vanished, and Kurabi stood in a red haze, his face hidden behind a black mask that revealed glowing white eyes. This is... Sasuke blurted out, lost in contemplation at what he saw. Kurabi lunged directly at the spiritual deity, exclaiming, "We!" As he got closer, the bones in his spine and shoulder began to resemble the head of an ox. He cried out, "Lariat!" as he struck Susanoo in the face with a demon skull so loudly that the ethereal demigod had to duck from the blow. Sasuke thought to himself, the strength of an ox indeed, as his Susanoo was pushed back and had to quickly reform. He yelled, "Enten! Kagetsuchi!" as black flames shot forward in front of him, forcing Kurabi to retreat or risk being touched by them. It is not possible for me to defeat him in this manner, he continued, raising Susanoo's 2 free arms into the shape of 2 spiritual swords. Kurabi rapped, "You've got to be faster than that," as he leapt back to avoid the blade's twin slashes. "I'm gonna make you go splat." Enten. Yasaka no Magatama, Sasuke said clearly as a rotating Magatama burst out of the black flame. Covered orb in Susanoo's third hand. Kurabi thought to himself, this kid is good, as he barely avoided the dozen Magatama that were thrown at him. I'm curious if I could. Yuki told him, this isn't the time to be holding back. Version 2 isn't going to cut it against this guy. But, bro, Kurabi commenced. Yuki jumped in, saying, let's just do it. Kurabi uttered the words, alright then, as the red chakra abruptly transformed into purple tentacles that resembled octopuses and kept growing both upward and outward. Sasuke murmured, now what? But his eyes briefly widened in shock as a fully developed Hachibi no Kyogyu towered over him, effectively crushing the mountain they had been fighting on. He screamed, shit, and leapt back. The enormous demon ox roared its head back, gathered red and blue chakra spheres at its mouth, and compressed them into a black sphere pulsing with lightning. I float like a butterfly and I'll sting ya like a killer bee. 'Cause, I'm the 8-tailed beast, it exclaimed. It's not good, Sasuke thought as his eyes began to bleed. Yuki cried out, Bijudama. As he lowered his head and let loose a powerful chakra blast that swept over everything in his path. Whistling, his Jinchuriki tore through the valley, destroying everything in its path, even a few small mountains. From inside the ox's head, Kurabi rapped, that was grade 8. Oh. This guy gets 0. Yuki responded, hold that thought, as the dust settled. Enten. Kagetsuchi no Tsurugi. Cried a heavily bleeding Sasuke, whose Susanoo reformed into a single arm holding a sword. The black flames encased the blade as it swung forward, impaling the demon ox squarely in the chest. Yuki growled, Damn, as the dark flames engulfed him. Kurabi yelled back, I know. And launched himself off the demon ox's back. Sasuke cried out, you won't escape. As his Susanoo began to fade. Kurabi was seized by a single arm that swung out and held him tightly like a vice. Yuki nearly implored. Come on, Keep it together. It appears that was Kurabi's last thought before he passed out. Sasuke finally lost his Susanoo and fell to one knee from exhaustion. He moaned. There was still much work ahead of him. Forest in the land of fire. He had finally mastered the use of senjutsu, which was regarded as one of the strongest skills in the entire shinobi world, following weeks of intense training with the toads of Myobokuzan. Naturally, he still hadn't mastered it because, whenever Fukasaku or Shima attempted to merge with his shoulders so that he could absorb natural energy while moving and fighting, the obnoxious Ichibi would interfere. Being descended from the Sarutobi clan, He was a genius who immediately came up with a plan to get around that small issue, even though he knew it would only be temporary in any protracted conflict with the Akatsuki. For now, though, it was adequate. He saw a flicker of movement and hurled a shuriken from his pouch towards it right away. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He cried out as the shuriken suddenly multiplied to 20 and blasted through the intended area. Kisame remarked, "Not bad kid," coming out from behind the now shuriken covered tree. "You were able to notice my approach. You've gotten better." Konohamaru trailed off, standing motionless as he began to gather natural energy. "You are." Kisame let out a massive torrent of water from his mouth, which rapidly expanded and formed a massive dome. "Sweden. Daibakusu Shoha," he yelled. Konohamaru's pupils extended into toad like horizontal slits and his eyes turned yellow with red rings around them as he thought, "This dome again." He said, "Senjutsu, Senin Moto," into the rippling water. Kisame laughed as he closed in on Samahata, which had already embedded itself in his back and caused him to transform into a shark-like creature. "You're mine now. I won't let you escape again." The water rippled as Konohamaru yelled, "Senpo, Kawazu Kumite," as he blocked the attacking man. Shark with a punch. Kisame laughed as he easily avoided the attack, only to be startled when Samahata absorbed its natural energy and had to break free from its master, transforming back into a human. The Ichibi Jinchuriki cried out, "Senpo, Udama Rasengan," as he swam swiftly toward the dumbfounded Kisame and struck him with a massive chakra sphere the size of his body, blowing him out of the water dome and causing it to collapse. Kisame shook his head and said, "W. What the fuck was that?" Samahata crawled up to his side. The sword attempted to speedily mend its wielder's wounds, but it felt as though it were choking him or something. "What the fuck is wrong with your chakra? That's not your Biju's power, so what gives?" Konohamaru shot back, "I'm not telling you anything," his fingers creating the familiar hand seal. A moment later, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, 2 clones materialized at his side. With the 2 clones beginning to channel chakra into his hand, he yelled, "This ends here. Only one of us will be leaving this battlefield alive." "What is that?" The whole place seemed to be getting hotter by the minute, so Kisame thought with growing concern. Konohamaru exclaimed, "Kaden, go and Rasengan," while clutching a glimmering red ball of whirling fire. Kisame was forced to attempt to avoid the approaching attack, but he was aware that he would not be able to do so in time, as he hurled it like a ball straight at the Kiri Nukanen. The wielder of the monster sword was left staring wide-eyed as the weapon was swallowed by a column of fire that blew him back through multiple trees when Samahata itself noticed this and leapt in the path of the compressed fireball. Kisame bled from cuts and scratches on his body, saying, "Shit." Samahata was destroyed by whatever Kaden Jutsu was because it used the strange chakra that the child was using because it was unable to absorb it. He had lost his valuable sword to a Konoha shinobi twice, and this time there was no way he could retrieve it. This was personal now, screw it. He cried out, "Sweden, Daikoden no Jutsu," as a huge water shark burst out of his mouth, encasing his body and shooting directly at the Ichibi Jinchuriki. He would fight to the death if that was his fate. As the water shark closed in, Konohamaru thought, "I'm out of Sage Chakra and there's no way I can create a clone to recharge it while this guy is fighting me." Shukaku laughingly said, "Would you like some power? Let's kill him. I want to see blood." In the back of his mind, pulling on his Biju's chakra, Konohamaru replied, "For once we agree on something." Sand erupted from all around him, forming a wall of sand to protect himself from the water shark, and a column of red chakra burst from his form. More sand shot up from the ground, encasing Konohamaru even as the sand absorbed the water shark, taking on the shape of the fabled Ichibi no Tanuki, towering over the forest in front of it. Is he capable of completely changing into the Ichibi? Kisame thought, startled. I can't win this without Samahata. Konohamaru stood on Shukaku's head and began to gather what appeared to be a whirlwind of sand and dust into a single compressed black sphere of chakra at the Ichibi's mouth, thinking to himself, I can't hold this form long and stay in control. Oh shit, Kisame muttered to himself. Konohamaru cried out, Bijudama, as the black sphere burst forward in a light beam. As the explosion swept across Kisame, it completely destroyed everything in its path with a beam of light, tearing apart the forest. When the explosion subsided and Konohamaru swiftly stopped the Ichibi's chakra's flow, Shukaku's body disintegrated until it crashed into a mound of sand. With relief and tiredness, he stumbled, I did it, he said. Are you happy with me, Aniki? Land of Spring. Clan compound of the Yuki, Uzumaki. Since the end of the Civil War 8 years ago, Yukigakure no Sato had undergone significant change, the most significant of which being the conversion of nearly the whole land of snow into a land of spring. The snow that gave the nation its name had almost entirely melted away due to the heat generators of the Kazuhana clan, leaving only the mountaintops where Yuki was located as the only remaining patches of snow. The Kazuhana were a civilian clan with great wealth and prestige who were able to establish themselves as the daimyo of the country when it was first formed, but Yuki had not had its own ninja clan as other shinobi villages had. With the support of the daimyo, the surviving members of the Uzumaki clan and their vassals were able to take over the village as soon as the civil war ended and they became integrated. They had built a sizable Uzumaki compound in the center of the village to aid in their transition into the community and help them lead it. Naruto could still picture the expressions on people's faces when he used just one hand to seal a house. He now understood why it had amused Hashirama Sensei so much. Yuki was a small shinobi village, with only a few thousand shinobi and kunoichi in active service at any one time. The forces of such a small village simply could not compete with the likes of the main 5 villages, which boasted tens of thousands of soldiers. The destruction of Uzushio served as a lesson to all the other minor villages about what happened when a minor village became too strong for them to handle. Aim was only spared total destruction during the wars because Hanzo and later Pain were strong enough to hold it back. Aim's strength was only slightly less than Suna's. It was truly unfortunate that they both lost sight of the tranquility they were after. As her unexpected visitor took a seat at her table and perused the most recent report, Karen inquired, "So you've heard?" "Even though I'm not as skilled as Hinoka Nichan, I'm still a seal master like all Uzumakis," replied Naruto, perched on the windowsill with a leg extended. "Mito. Sama's seals really are amazing. It's no wonder that Hashirama Sensei could use them to spy on the whole continent." "The Hachibi Jinchuriki have been abducted by the remnant of the Akatsuki," Karen stated coolly. "Apparently he was the brother of the current Raikage and it seems that the Raikage has called a meeting of the Kages in the Land of Iron." "The nation of samurai," thought Naruto. Karen leaned back in her chair and said, "I'm surprised at you," sporting a cunning smirk. "From the reports, the one who took the Hachibi Jinchuriki was none other than Uchiha Sasuke, your former teammate." "We used to be allies," Naruto clarified. "But in the end he was just using me like everyone else. I no longer care what happens with the Uchiha or Konoha." Karen chuckled at his statement, "Really? What will you do, I wonder? He is a member of the Akatsuki now and that means he's Madara's puppet, so what will you do when you see him next?" "I don't care about him," Naruto answered. "I'll leave him to you. Do with him as you please." Karen answered. "I'll do just that. Naruto-kun," and then she turned back to the papers that were all over her desk. "What are we going to do about this Cage Summit that they're organizing?" "It's a celebration," shrugged Naruto. "I say we crash it. Heaven on earth. Akatsuki base." White Zetsu exhaled in relief as the last of the crimson chakra entered the demonic statue's mouth. "Finally," he said. "It was an eternity," Black Zetsu said. "Well, there are only 4 of us. Now that the Hachibi has been sealed, the only things left are the Ichibi and the Kyubi," Obito thought to himself, turning to face the younger Uchiha beside him. "Not bad, Sasuke," he remarked, alluding to the Hachibi Jinchuriki that his clansmen had captured. Though he had been concerned that Sasuke wouldn't have enough power to defeat a perfect Jinchuriki like Kurabi, he was sure that the younger man's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan would give him the necessary strength. Sasuke asked, "What are we going to do about the others?" Black Zetsu said, "I still can't believe that Kisame lost against that kid. It's unfortunate that I was unable to obtain his body," Kabuto muttered to himself. "I should have used him for what is about to happen after I used my jutsu to resurrect him." "Raikage is planning a summit," Zetsu in white told him. "Considering 7 of the 9 Biju are in our possession, they're a little late but they could pose a problem if we're not careful." "The cages don't matter," refuted Obito. "Where are they holding this summit?" "The Land of Iron," Zetsu, who was white, replied. "It's a neutral nation comprised of nothing but samurai. From what I know, the last known contact between their forces was with Hanzo back during the Second Shinobi War." "Samurai?" Sasuke practically sneered when they were mentioned. Obito asked again, "What of the cage's escorts?" "2 escorts per cage," Zetsu, who was white, answered. If I know that fool of a Hokage, he'll probably bring the Ichibi Jinchuriki with him, Sasuke said. Jiraiya will want to have Konohamaru close so as to keep an eye on him, especially after what happened with Kisame. Kukakuku, laughed Kabuto. What are you going to do now? Zetsu, I have something I need you to do. Land of Fire, Hokage Tower in Konoha. For his great literature, Jiraiya of the Sannin, the Godem Hokage of Konoha, was regarded as the most well-known writer in the world. He was considered the best novelist of all time by men worldwide, shinobi and civilian alike. However, because of his research and his Icha Paradise books, he was considered the greatest pervert of all time by women, both kunoichi and civilian. He was the strongest shinobi in Konoha, only surpassed by Sarutobi Konohamaru, his current pupil. Regarding the Ichibi Jinchuriki, Jiraiya nearly suffered a heart attack upon learning that Hoshigaki Kisame, an Akatsuki agent, had attempted to kidnap him while returning from the Myobokuzan. Thank goodness, Konohamaru was able to destroy Samahada and defeat the Kiri Nukanen in order to return to Konoha's safety. The civilians still detested Konohamaru because of the Ichibi that the Sandaime Hokage had sealed inside him 8 years prior, but the ninja of the village had welcomed him after learning of his successes on missions and most recently against the Akatsuki threat. However, Jiraiya made an extra effort to take care of Konohamaru and his family, unlike with Naruto. Although the Sarutobi clan was not the biggest in the world, it was arguably the most adaptable due to its ability to produce brilliant individuals like Sarutobi Hiruzen, who rose to become the Sandaime Hokage and was known as the Professor, Sarutobi Asuma, his son, and Sarutobi Konohamaru, the Ichibi Jinchuriki. The fact that Kisame had pursued him by himself rather than in a pair, as he had previously seen, unnerved him. Kisame ought to have been paired with a new hunting partner to pursue Konohamaru even if Sasuke had killed Itachi, but this didn't appear to be the case. His spy network provided the information that Amegakure no Sato, the village thought to be the Akatsuki headquarters, had been attacked and destroyed. It seemed as though most of the villagers had been wiped out and the entire village reduced to a crater by something or someone. For a painful moment, he believed that Kyuubi no Yoko, who had undergone complete reform, was to blame. The Kyuubi were infamous for being a walking natural disaster that preyed on and destroyed places where hate existed. AIM would have been a very tempting target, as the headquarters of a group that was actively tracking down and capturing its brothers and sisters. He would bet that the Akatsuki leader had most likely escaped AIM's destruction with them, given that the captured Biju had not yet been released and had destroyed half of the continent. Should that be the case, the Kyuubi would pursue him or her relentlessly before focusing on Konoha as retaliation for both being imprisoned inside Naruto and the Ichibi being sealed in Konohamaru. That's when his spy network's most recent report arrived. With a rather pale face, Haruno Sakura questioned, "Why? You're just joking around, aren't you, Hokage? Sama? T. There's no way. That's impossible." "It's the truth," Jiraiya said, taking the statement very seriously. Uchiha Sasuke survived his battle against his brother and has joined the Akatsuki. He's captured the Hachibi Jinchuriki and the Raikage is angry that his brother was taken. He's organizing a summit of the 5 Kage and is requesting that we submit all information we have on Sasuke, marking him as a Nukanen. Konohamaru inquired, why would he do this? With surprise. His brother was in the Akatsuki, so why would he join them? I'm not sure, Jiraiya answered. If he really has joined the Akatsuki, then he's going to be coming after you, to get the Ichibi. Damn it, Konohamaru muttered under his breath, his fists balled up at his sides. I know that fighting and killing your enemies is one thing, but facing someone who was once a comrade is a lot harder. I know that better than anyone, Jiraiya stated to them. He had experienced confronting someone he had once regarded as a friend after what had happened to Orochimaru. But if Sasuke really has joined the Akatsuki, then I want all of you to face him as if he were an enemy. Don't let your personal feelings cloud your judgment. Through sobs, Sakura stumbled, But Hokage. Sama. Jiraiya continued, that's an order. Comprehensive, Hokage. Sama, Kakashi gave a nod. Your orders. You and Konohamaru will accompany me to the Cage Summit in the Land of Iron, Jiraiya said. It's about time we found out exactly what the other nations have been doing since this all started. Forest of Ice in the Land of Iron. The Hokage and his 2 escorts, Kakashi and Konohamaru, were walking at a civilian pace toward a large castle-like structure with 3 head-shaped structures in the distance. The snow had stopped falling about 30 minutes earlier. Though they had traveled without incident to this point, Jiraiya had been uneasy since leaving Konoha, and now, even though he could see their destination in the distance, he stopped walking, causing his escorts to stop as well. Kakashi asked, lifting his headband to reveal his Sharingan, Hokage. Sama. Await my command, Jiraiya commanded him as two shadows materialized in front of them and appeared to be ambling toward them. A young female voice said, I told you I could find them, but he didn't recognize it. Never doubt my abilities again. Whatever, he said, recognizing the voice. As the two emerged from the shadows and into the light, Jiraiya asked, Tsunade. My spy network said you disappeared years ago, so what are you doing here? Hello, Jiraiya, Tsunade said. I wish I could say that it's good to see you, but I'd be lying if I did. With narrowed eyes, Jiraiya asked. What is this? The redhead at Tsunade's side questioned back, isn't it obvious? She nodded to Konohamaru and said, the Akatsuki are after the Biju, so that means they're after the Ichibi brat over there. We're here to kill him to buy more time. Jiraiya retaliated, I'm not going to let that happen, but as soon as he saw Karen's Dujutsu, his eyes widened. The Rinnegan? How? Karen pondered, so you recognize these eyes too? In one lifetime, twice? Could it be that she killed Nagato and stole it? Jiraiya thought to himself, I'd better take this seriously then, and made a hand seal. Renden. Suna Shigur. Came from above, a man's voice echoing as sand descended and pelted Tsunade and Karen's area. Jiraiya asked, Cage. Dono? What are you doing here? As Gaara and his siblings touched down next to them. Gaara answered, proving my existence, while he looked impassively at the cloud of dust left over from his earlier attack. So we meet again. The Cage, huh? You've certainly come a long way from that pathetic excuse of a Jinchuriki, said Karen. Tsunade asked the redhead beside her, you know this guy? After responding, Karen turned to face the Cage. I defeated him and the other two 8 years ago. I even resurrected him after removing the Ichibi from him, Karen said. You should be thanking me for that, by the way. I hear that the life of a Jinchuriki is a terrible one. Gaara pondered, resurrection. You ended my existence back then. So why did you bring me back? Someone else asked, too, Karen answered with a shrug. Who? Gaara inquired more. Karen shrugged him off, you don't need to know, and turned to face Ichibi Jinchuriki as it was at the moment. Surrender and I may even resurrect you after we kill the Ichibi. Like I trust you, Konohamaru shot back a glare. Tsunade shrugged and rushed forward, readying his fist. Suit yourself, he said. With a quick flash, she was gone and was back above the Konoha and Suna ninja. Sutenkyaku. She exclaimed, causing the earth to turn over and send them scattering as her leg swung downward and her heel struck the ground. Jiraiya yelled at her, why are you doing this, Tsunade? As he landed a piece of turned earth a few feet away. Tsunade answered, Konoha took everything from me. They betrayed my family and then spat on their legacy. For that alone I have the right to destroy it and end this cycle of hatred. Jiraiya asked, almost imploringly, betrayed? Cycle of hatred? What happened to you, Tsunade? Tsunade shot back, you of all people should be able to understand. Wasn't it your last student who sacrificed himself for the village as its Hokage, and he was betrayed and his son used as the scapegoat for the hatred that came with the Kyuubi's attack? Jiraiya formed a series of hand seals and exclaimed, as that was this is about? He slammed his hand down on the ground, saying, you think I abandoned my godson to that life? A large toad. Like shield and a Sasumata appeared in an explosion of smoke, and he was holding a Sasumata. Kuchio's no jutsu. The big toad shuddered, its weight crushing the ground it was standing on. Jiraiya. Where am I? It's cold, it said. Jiraiya said, eyes front, Gameiken, with clarity. I need you to buy some time. Remember that, Gameiken answered, getting his Samusata ready. I'm a bit clumsy. I'm going to use Sage Mode, Jiraiya informed him. Gameiken stumbled, why? You don't mean. Karen thought, Sage Mode huh? She whispered, Shikushodo, Kuchio's no jutsu, as seals appeared on the snowy ground beneath her hand. In a flash, a chameleon, a brown bull, a big rhino, and a dog with multiple heads materialized in a cloud of smoke. Surprised, Konkuro asked, she can summon. I don't remember her doing that the last time we met her. Futon. Okakimi. shouted Tamari as she swung her fan in a concentrated windstorm toward the Yuki. Nins and Kankuro launched 3 massive puppets into battle. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Kakashi exclaimed, enhancing the wind jutsu by shooting a sizable fireball out of his mask. Covered mouth. Pitiful, Karen raised her hand and said with a hint of disdain. Gakido. Fujutsu Kyuin, she whispered as her barrier absorbed the wind. Fire combination jutsu. Shirato. She exclaimed, swiftly rotating her other arm to shoot a barrage of missiles from her wrist that destroyed the puppets in an instant. I thought I taught you once before just how far beneath me you are. Tsunade spoke clearly, Infuin, Kai, as chakra surged through her system and the jewel on her forehead dissolved. Sozo Seisei, she continued, her forehead and side of her face covered in seals. I've been told many times that I'm not on my grandfather's level, however I inherited his will of fire, something you all have forsaken. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Konohamaru exclaimed, hurling a shuriken that swiftly multiplied to 20 in her direction. Tsunade wondered, dodging the volley of shuriken, though one missed her cheek. So you're Sarutobi. Sensei's grandson, she thought to herself. Surely you can do better than that. She inquired, her cheek cut healing quickly. As the rest of her summons caused the assembled Konoha and Suna nins to disperse, Karen had leapt inside the chameleon's mouth, causing it to disguise itself. As the chameleon touched down next to Kankuro, Karen leapt out of its mouth, directly at the oldest of the 3 siblings made of sand. Karen grabbed Kankuro's head and pulled, tearing his very soul from his body in the process, causing him to gasp in shock. Karen muttered, Ninjendo. Kyukan no Jutsu, as the now dead Kankuro fell to the ground. Tamari exclaimed, Kankuro. In shock at what she saw. Gaara began, Ryusa Bakuryu, as sand burst from the earth behind him and swept across the battlefield in a wave. Karen trailed off as the sand swallowed her. This is Sabaku Taiso, Gaara said, balling his fist. Karen yelled, Tendo. Shinra Tensai. As the sand was violently pushed away and gravity began to tremble. Not bad. You've gotten better since the last time we fought. Reikari. Kakashi yelled from behind Tsunade, piercing her back with his hand covered in lightning. He pulled his hand out and apologized to Tsunade. Sama, saying, I cannot allow you to threaten Konoha anymore. The lightning had stopped. Shut your mouth, kid, Tsunade snapped back, turning to strike the copy. Nin fatally in the midsection, sending him flying into the overturned rock. She said clearly, Byakugo no Jutsu, as seals extended farther and touched every part of her body. She said, as long as my jutsu is active, I cannot die, and kicked Gomakin out of the way, sending the enormous toad hurtling across the battlefield and landing farther away in the snowy forest. Gaara muttered, Renden. Suna Shigur, as he gathered more sand and began firing it in volley at the rapidly drawing Karen. Karen held up her hand and declared, Gakido. Fujutsu Kyuin, letting her barrier take up most of the sand attacks as she ran. As she got closer, she tried to thrust her hand directly at Gaara but ran into a sand wall instead. She drained the chakra from the sand wall and the last of Gaara's chakra, saying, Gakido. Fujutsu Kyuin, with haste. Ninj. She began, but before she could finish her sentence, a blur appeared above her. With a huge spiraling sphere in hand, Jiraiya descended upon her and exclaimed, Senpo. Cho Odama Rasengan. Karen trailed off, that's. As she moved away from the now depleted Gaara and raised her hand to block the approaching attack. She said in a whisper, Gakido. Fujutsu Kyuin, as her barrier made contact with the chakra ball and immediately absorbed it. Jiraiya said, that's a pretty interesting ability you've got there, as he landed a few feet in front of her. His features had shifted, taking on more of a toad-like appearance with a bigger nose, warts, and yellow eyes with horizontal pupil bars. A couple of old toads, who appeared to be male and female, were perched on his shoulders. Fukasaku asked over the man's right shoulder, Jiraiya. Boy, why have you summoned us? And why are you using this form? I thought you hated it because of its effects on the ladies or something like that. Jiraiya said, take a look at who we are facing, despite the fact that he kept his gaze fixed on the redhead behind him. Since I'm up against the Rinnegan, I can't afford to hold back. With surprise, Shima asked, the sage's eyes? I thought they were a myth. Jiraiya pleaded, please, lend me your strength, as the earth appeared to crack and fracture all around him. Karen thought, narrowing her eyes, this chakra. There's no denying that this is identical to Naruto's Sage Mode. Fukasaku exclaimed, all together. As the two toads and their summoner formed a hand. Seal and inhaled deeply. Senpo. Gomon. The three exclaimed, launching a powerful stream of fire, wind, and oil at the red-haired woman in the shape of a wave. Karen muttered, that's too much, raising her hands to block the approaching blow. Gakido. Fujutsu Kyuin, Jiraiya materialized behind her, and her senses began to awaken. The initial assault served only as a diversion. Jiraiya exclaimed, Senpo, Kabari Senbon. As he dropped to all fours and shot a flurry of needle-like projectiles out of his hair. Tendo. Shinra Tensai, Karen muttered as she dodged her opponent's volley and leapt out of reach. There's no way she could have seen us, Fukasaku said. We were in her blind spot the entire time. I believe she is a censor, Shima opined. I've been trying to keep her chakra pinpointed ever since we arrived, but it keeps disappearing like she's somehow masking it. Even the most advanced censors cannot achieve that, Jiraiya pondered. Tendo. Chibaku Tensai. Karen exclaimed, creating a triangle-shaped seal with her hand. She hurled the tiny black gravity orb she had created into the sky, where it swiftly descended a ray of light onto the world below. Jiraiya questioned, what is this? As gravity began to rapidly shift around him and pull the earth itself skyward, forming a small moon. Your end, in response from Karen. With all of his remaining strength, Kakashi rasped, Kamui, into his Mangekyo Sharingan. Before the new moon grew too large and sucked in the gravity ball, space and time were warped there. With nothing supporting it, the accumulated rock fragments collapsed, showering the surrounding area with rubble. As the last of his strength left him, he thought, Sensei. Rin. Obito. I'm sorry. I'll be there soon. Damn it, Jiraiya swore as she felt Kakashi's remaining chakra vanish. So you were even able to destroy my Chibaku Tensai, Karen thought. She said, you Konoha ninja really are something, but that won't save you here, as Tsunade touched down beside her. Now it's over, Jiraiya said. There has been enough pain and death today. For crimes against Konoha and Suna, I will stop you both here. As they sang, Fukasaku and Shima exclaimed, Megan, Gamma Rinsho. Four enormous toad samurai surrounded Tsunade and Karen inside a cube that resembled water as the sound reverberated throughout the battlefield. This is a genjutsu, Karen swore, discovering she was immobile despite her attempts to break it. Excellent performance, Jiraiya, Tsunade swore. Jiraiya said softly. Goodbye Tsunade, as he moved closer to kill them with two stone swords that had formed in his hands. A voice murmured, Hiraishin no Jutsu, as Naruto materialized between the two Yuki Nins. He then gave them both a slap on the head, breaking the genjutsu they were wearing. Jiraiya trailed off abruptly, looking very pale. That jutsu. Menma. Kun? Karen shook her head in question. Rubbed the back of her head. You're going to pay for that, she said. Both of you should withdraw, Naruto said to them. The situation has changed. Tsunade asked, perplexed, how? The Akatsuki attacked Konoha and killed Danzo. It looks like Tobi was after Shisui's Mangekyo Sharingan that the old Warhawk took, Naruto responded. The eye was destroyed so we don't have to worry about it, but he's preparing for something big. Karen swore. Damn, so what now? This is no longer just some skirmishes between our two groups, said Naruto. The fourth great shinobi war has begun. Let's head out of here, Karen finally said. Jiraiya yelled, I won't let you escape. And lunged towards the trio. Hiraishin no Jutsu, Naruto declared emphatically before seizing the two women by his side and vanishing in a flash of yellow light. Jiraiya cried out, damn it. As he struck the ground without applying enough force to crack it open. That was undoubtedly Minato's jutsu, but why is Tsunade with these people, and who are they? I still have to meet with the other cages and I need to find out what happened in Konoha. Shit, I don't need more questions, I need answers. Yuki in the Land of Spring, meeting room. As they sat around a large round table in the center of the room, Hinoka explained, the 5 major villages have joined together to create some kind of alliance against us and the Akatsuki, though they have no idea where either of us are based. I still can't believe that old fence-sitter of a Tsuchikage would agree to something like this, said Tsunade. The same with that fool of a Raikage. The 5 major villages have all lost their Jinchuriki besides Konoha, so they're all weakened, Karen argued. They're afraid of what people like the Akatsuki can do with the full power of 7 Biju under their control. I still don't get what the Akatsuki want with the Biju, Tsunade mentioned. I mean, what's their endgame? They've been sealing them inside of some kind of demonic statue, replied Naruto. According to the Kyuubi, it's the physical remains of a creature once known as the Aim no Hitotsu no Kami, also called the Jubi. The Jubi? Something stronger than the Kyuubi exists? Tsunade, who had just turned a little pale, asked. It seems that after facing and defeating the Jubi, the Rakudo, Sennin sealed it inside of him to become the first Jinchuriki. Then, he sealed the moon away to serve as a prison for its physical remains, but it appears that someone has broken the seal and called the statue to life. This world will end if Obito succeeds in fully resurrecting the Jubi, Naruto said. Or at least that's what the Kyuubi keeps telling me. Tsunade shook her head and said, there has to be more to it than that. There's nothing to be gained by reviving something like that. I concur, Naruto gave a nod. But Obito's plan doesn't matter. We're going to stop him once and for all. The Hokage has been selected to head the so-called Shinobi Alliance, and they are currently establishing a headquarters in Kumo. Additionally, I've been monitoring the Ichibi Jinchuriki, Hinoka said. He's being sent to some kind of moving island deep in the land of lightning. Apparently there's some kind of temple there that the former Ichibi Jinchuriki used to gain control of his Biju in a similar manner that you did with the Kyuubi, Naruto. Kun. You know, Konohamaru? Over time, he's developed significantly, Naruto remarked, grinning a little. I wouldn't mind fighting him now. The Akatsuki are gathering their forces for a full-scale assault on the land of lightning in order to acquire the Ichibi, Hinoka said. Their numbers stand at about 100,000 while the Shinobi Alliance forces have roughly 80,000. Tsunade whistled at the figures. There hasn't been a war on this scale since the founding era. And what are we going to do about this? Finally, Naruto got up and said, Hinoka, Karen, Tsunade. Obito, come with me. Land of Lightning, Jinchuriki Temple and Turtle Island. With the passing of both Kakashi and the elder brother of the Kazekage, along with the recent Akatsuki attack on Konoha, the Cage Summit had been nothing short of a nightmare for everyone involved. The two groups that seemed to have the strength and the will to directly challenge the 5 main shinobi villages were seen by them as a threat to the world, and as such, they had united to confront them. 7 out of the 9 Biju belonged to one group, while the other contained a person with the Rinnegan, who was most likely descended from the man known as the founder of the shinobi world, Rakudo. Sennin. Konohamaru was a weapon of war, and as a Jinchuriki, he was bound to be used, especially since the strange man in the mask they had encountered had declared a 4th grade shinobi war. To that end, Jiraiya had sent Konohamaru and a few shinobi as his guards to an island deep within the land of lightning, after ordering a number of medic nins to implant Kakashi's Mangekyo Sharingan into his left eye socket. Based on his knowledge, this location served as the training ground for the previous Hachibi Jinchuriki in Bijutsu control, and the primary purpose of giving him Kakashi's Sharingan following the man's death was to help him better master the Ichibi that resided inside of him. Is this the place? As they entered a clearing with a waterfall, Konohamaru inquired. This concludes it, Motoi nodded in response. His duty as an island guide had been assigned to the Kumo Nin. It's called the Waterfall of Truth. And this is where the Hachibi Jinchuriki learned to control his Biju? Konohamaru peered at the stunning waterfall in front of him and inquired further. No, replied Motoi. Then, pointing to the little island in the center of the shallow water at the waterfall's base, he said, this is just the first step. Konohamaru, sit here and close your eyes. You'll be able to see the truth if you take that action. Okay, Konohamaru gave a nod, crossed the small island, and took a seat in the middle. Let's get started. Now was the time to face his darkness. Land of Fire, Temple of Uzumaki. Naruto remarked, it doesn't look like anyone's been here for years. You mean decades, Tsunade retorted. It's crumbling down. Hinoka became quiet. I know it's pretty far away from Konoha, but I was expecting it to be in better condition than this. Tsunade gritted. Konoha tried to erase all knowledge of the Uzumaki clan. Of course they'd leave this place to rot. They treated my parents' former home in the same way. Naruto said as they entered, it hasn't been touched since Obito used the Kyuubi to attack Konoha. Which one is it? They stood in front of a wall that had been covered in dozens of masks when Karen posed the question. Let's see. Somewhere. Hinoka pondered and then extended her Uzu no Tsurugi. She nodded and said, "This is it," as her sword approached one of the masks and chakra began to seep out as the mask closed in. "It's a little unsettling," Karen said. Naruto said, "I'd better make this quick then," taking the mask and pressing it against his face. They followed instructions to stand back, and as soon as the mask touched his face, the Shinigami's well known and horrifying spiritual pressure, its arms out, appears behind him. Unlike the Shikifu Jin, which requires forming a contract with the Shinigami in order to use its power, Hinoka said. The Shinigami's mask was created by our clan to break those contracts at the cost of the user's life by allowing the Shinigami to possess the user's body. I thought Jinchuriki couldn't summon the Shinigami? Tsunade asked with curiosity. Jinchuriki can't use the Shikifu Jin because they have two souls in their bodies and can't enter a contract because of that, Hinoka went on. Using the mask on the other hand doesn't require any sort of contract. As the Shinigami brought down its knife and stabbed itself, inflicting the same wound on Naruto's body, Naruto thought to himself, Kurama. The Kyuubi said, "Give me a second," flooding his host's system with chakra to repair the damage. "My yin chakra is returning. In a few minutes I'll be back at full power again." Naruto said with a small smile as his wound fully healed, "You're welcome." Tsunade said, "You're lucky to have the Kyuubi to deal with that kind of thing. I'd have to resort to my Kenjutsu to heal from something like that. Let us gather whatever isn't fastened and depart before Konoha becomes aware of our existence," Naruto said, taking off the mask and dispelling the Shinigami. Land of Lightning, Jinchuriki Temple and Turtle Island. He eventually came to terms with that aspect of himself, despite the bitterness he still harbored toward his grandfather and the village that had treated him so poorly. Fighting his darkness wasn't the solution he'd been searching for. Motoi had led Konohamaru inside the temple after he had accepted his darkness at the waterfall, bringing him to the same room where Kurabi had faced and subdued the Hachibi in his youth. In the event that Konohamaru lost the battle and Shukaku was set free, Motoi shut the door behind him and he took a seat in the middle of the White Room. The Ichibi had to be faced. "So, you've arrived here at last, huh?" Ha 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 ha. With a crazy gleam in its demonic eyes, Shukaku laughed. "I'm about to murder you. When I crush you with my sand, your blood will run everywhere. You really are insane, aren't you?" Konohamaru looked at the sand demon in front of him and asked sadly. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry that you've turned out like this. Just die." Shukaku pounded on the cage door dividing them, half laughing, half growling. Konohamaru sighed and went to the cage door to take off the paper covering the seal, saying, "There's no use talking to you." He stepped back and brought the key to the seal, turning it until the seal unraveled. "You lost your grasp on reality a long time ago," he said. "Ha ha 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 ha. I demand your blood." The Ichibi no Tanuki growled, flinging open the cage doors and sending a sandstorm across the room. Konohamaru swore and leapt onto the ceiling, covering his eye. "Shit," he said. A few seconds later, Senjutsu, Senenmoto, popped open in his eye. The pupils in his right eye grew longer into horizontal bars, and red rings appeared around them, turning the eye yellow. Futon. Renkuden. With a roar, Shukaku threw a string of powerful wind blasts at its Jinchuriki. Konohamaru thought as he raised his hand to reveal his left eye, "This guy won't let up." "Now we're going," he exclaimed, whirling in his new Sharingan as he followed the enormous wind projectiles and leapt to avoid them. "Just die already." As he began to gather red and blue demonic chakra orbs to his mouth and compress them into a single black sphere, Shukaku let out a shout. With a curse, Konohamaru pushed more chakra into his eye, causing his Sharingan to transform into its Mangekyo form. "Damn," he said. "Bijudama." The sphere exploded forward in a golden light beam, and Shukaku let out a roar. "Senpo. Kamui." As time and space began to warp before Konohamaru, he let out a cry. Konohamaru's mastery of the sage arts enhanced the sheer power and scale of his jutsu beyond that of any ordinary man, in contrast to the standard Kamui that Kakashi had utilized during his lifetime. Because of this, when Kakashi used this jutsu, it could only draw in an object the size of a person and could only produce a tiny vortex the size of the eye itself. But Konohamaru could create a vortex 10 times larger and 3 times more powerful when he used his sage mode to power it. Shukaku's attack was sucked into the vortex until nothing remained as a result of it striking it without blowing up. The Ichibi cried out in shock, "What?" as his strongest attack vanished right in front of his eyes. Damn you. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Konohamaru muttered as two clones materialized by his side. They began drawing chakra to form a whirling fireball as soon as they saw him. Casting the handheld fireball at the sand demon, he yelled, "Kaden, Goen Rasengan." What is this power? As the attack exploded in a column of fire and slammed into Shukaku, he yelled. He screamed as the heat rapidly transformed his sand-based body into glass. Then, as the column subsided and revealed his form, it broke, causing his chakra to drift away. Whispering, "It's over," Konohamaru seized the loose chakra and drew it into his own body. The chakra engulfed his form, bubbling demonic energy in the shape of a raccoon as it changed from gold to red. With a sigh, he released the chakra and rotated the key seal on his arm to match the one on his stomach. The reconstructing Ichibi was pinned to the ground by a sequence of torii that descended from above and encircled the sand demon in a cage. "I'll exact this price from you. I'll kill you, I swear." Shukaku yelled angrily. "My life is unaffected by someone who has long since lost their mind," Konohamaru replied, sensing his sage mode fading. He said, "I want to help you," as a regular Mangekyo Sharingan began to take on the appearance of a four-pointed shuriken. Koto Amatsukami. Land of Spring. Central Tower, Yuki. "All right? What's new?" Karen sat down in her chair and asked. Tsunade said, somewhat disgusted, "The Akatsuki have been using some kind of clones grown from my grandfather's cells. These, Zetsu, are what makes up the bulk of the Akatsuki army, though they are admittedly weak compared to my grandfather even if they are a match for regular ninja. They lost half of their numbers in the first day and only killed 20,000 Alliance ninja," Hinoka went on. "However, during the night these Zetsu seemed to have absorbed the chakra from those that were fighting during the day in order to transform into Alliance ninja." "I guess this isn't a regular henge you're talking about?" Karen asked. Hinoka answered, "They can duplicate a person right down to their chakra. They snuck into Alliance camps and started assassinating people all across the border." "There's no way to detect them?" Karen questioned, appearing a little alarmed by it. "What about sensor? Nin? Menma? Kun could probably sense them with his ability to detect negative emotions, but a regular chakra sensor wouldn't work," Hinoka replied. "The Alliance lost another 20,000 during the night, and that's when they were deployed to the battlefields." "They?" wondered Karen. Tsunade said, "My granduncle invented a kinjutsu called Edo Tensai. It allows people to bring someone back to life at the cost of another's life, though it's a hollow existence since the one that's summoned is nothing but a puppet for the summoner to control and is practically nothing but a moving corpse." Karen uttered the disgusting words, "A jutsu like that shouldn't have been created," recalling the last time she had seen the move. The cages were compelled to declare a retreat and withdraw their forces to Kumo when those called by Edo Tensai were used. The 7 shinobi swordsmen of the mist and the former cages were among those called upon, Hinoka went on. "Hashirama. Sama?" Worried, Karen asked now. "Not yet, though I think that's because the summoner has been having a bit of trouble controlling the Nidaime Hokage when he was summoned to the battlefield," Hinoka responded. "Or he's being held back," suggested Naruto. "Or that," nodded Hinoka. "So what do we do now?" It was posed by Karen. "I'm heading to Kumo," was Naruto's final response. "I'll leave the Edo Tensai to you."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.